Mu Yungui died. A sword immortal, he died the day before the destruction of the demon sect. As the #1 righteous sect in the world, he never expected that his sect leader and holy maiden were actually ruthless people who secretly stole people's bloodlines. He was framed by the two, who attempted to steal his cultivation. Better to be a broken piece of jade than a whole piece of tile. He was reborn, he returned to his teenage years. I wanted to avoid getting involved in the karma of my past life, and just live a quiet, uneventful life. A knock sounded at the door, and a small, ragged beggar appeared before him. "Young master, could you give me some food? I can make anything." Looking into the girl's helpless, embarrassed, and desperate eyes, one realizes that she is none other than Jiang Ryuachin, the demon empress who was forced into the demonic path after her family was slaughtered by the holy maiden in her previous life. Mu Yungui decides to take revenge. She adopts the naive and ignorant lowly-like female demon empress before her. He seized all the cultivation techniques and opportunities from the saintess in his previous life and provided them for the young empress to cultivate. The path of revenge has turned into the path of raising an empress. However, as the empress grew up, Mu Yungui discovered that this obedient and sensible, stunningly beautiful disciple seemed to become too clingy as her cultivation level increased. Just now, am I reborn? Feeling his slightly immature body, Mu Yungui was somewhat incredulous that he had actually returned to the day he transmigrated. Mu Yungui is a transmigrator. In his previous life, relying on his sword spirit saint body and comprehension, he reached the peak of the tribulation transcending stage in less than 60 years, becoming one of the strongest people in the world. With the addition of Shen Qinghen, the sect's holy maiden possessing the supreme physique, and the heavenly evolution divine demon heart, the Tai Chuan sword sect now boasts two peak tribulation transcending stage experts. It is only natural that it has become the strongest sect in the world. Things should have gone so smoothly. Until the day of the annihilation of the demon sect, Mu Yungui was actually framed by his own sect leader and the holy maiden, who cut off his limbs, destroyed his 5 senses, and tried to extract his cultivation with the eternal spirit absorption array. Shen Qinghen actually wanted to break through the limits of this world by absorbing his cultivation, reaching a realm that no one had ever reached before. Immortal. It's also Mu Yungui's fault for never being wary of his own people. Although they are both holy sons of the sect, Mu Yungui doesn't really know Shen Qinghen very well. In fact, he knows Shen Qinghen less well than he does Jiang Ryuachin, the demon empress who has been entangled with him for more than 10 years and still hasn't been killed. It was precisely because their sex actions were all righteous that they lowered their guard. It's like watching a Japanese adult film. The wife is clearly acting very strangely, but the husband is completely oblivious. The darkest place is under the lamp. The holy maiden and sect master of our own sect were actually those treacherous and cunning people. Perhaps because she was about to become the first person in 10,000 years, Shen Qinghen deliberately recounted everything that Shen Lingxiao and she had done, tormenting this sword immortal who adhered to the righteous path with a twisted sense of humor, and tormenting Mu Yungui's Tao heart. Before his fall, Shen Qinghen revealed that the holy eyes and the holy bones were all used to secretly plunder the bloodline and physique of others. Even the demon empress, Jiang Ryuachin's fall into the demonic path, was secretly orchestrated by them. The only thing they hadn't anticipated was Jiang Ryuachin's desperate resistance, which ultimately allowed them to cultivate to the peak of the tribulation transcending stage, enabling them to fight the opponent. And those whose bloodline and physique were stripped away by Shen Qinghen, countless geniuses, have all perished. Jiang Ryuachin, the demon empress who shares the same heavenly evolution divine demon heart as her, and Mu Yungui are the final pieces of the puzzle for Shen Qinghen's ascension to immortality. By merging Jiang Ryuachin's demon-possessed heart with Mu Yungui's cultivation, one can touch the opportunity to become an immortal. Better to be a broken piece of jade than a whole piece of tile. In the end, Mu Yungui, relying on his sword spirit saint body, reversed the cycle of heaven and earth, using his body as a sword and destroying his own cultivation to summon his strongest sword as a sword cultivator. He then cooperated with the demonic empress, Jiang Ryuachin, to severely injure her. As for the demon empress Jiang Ryuachin, she was also forced into the demonic path by her opponent. She lived only for revenge. Taking advantage of her opponent's serious injury, she destroyed her own cultivation and perished together with Shen Qinghen. The only 3 cultivators at the peak of the tribulation, transcending stage in the entire eastern continent died together. For some reason, Mu Yungui woke up again and found himself back on the day he had just transmigrated to this place. Mu Yungui gritted her teeth as she thought of the two people who had used her as a training tool. Although he didn't know why he had been reborn, he wished Shen Lingxia would appear in front of him immediately and kill him with a single sword stroke. However, according to this timeline, Shen Lingxia should have the strength of the void refinement stage at this time. After calming down and thinking it over, I realized that seeking revenge wouldn't be easy, and I had absolutely no chance of winning. Judging from their current cultivation levels, the two are separated by the foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, and deity transformation realms. Even if the other stood there and handed him a sword, he wouldn't be able to cut the other and might even exhaust himself to death. Even the holy maiden Shen Qinghen has already reached the peak of the foundation establishment stage. Mu Yungui rubbed his forehead. There is still a small gap between me and him. Then, realizing that he couldn't take revenge immediately, Mu Yungui squatted at the door, looking at the torrential rain outside, muttering curses about the two people from his previous life. Half an hour later, the rain gradually stopped. Exhausted from cursing, Mu Yungui walked in the dilapidated courtyard, a sense of nostalgia flashing through his mind. It seems that heaven noticed him as an outsider and rationalized everything. After transmigrating to his previous life, Mu Yungui, who had shrunk a bit, discovered that he owned this small courtyard with a land deed in Suzhou. It seemed that everyone on the street knew him, so he ate from the homes of many people and managed to live a somewhat haphazard life. About a month later, when the sword sect came to recruit disciples, they noticed Mu Yungui's sword spirit body and began to enter the sword sect, step by step eliminating demons and protecting the righteous path to become the Holy Sun. I do feel a bit emotional. Fake alcohol is harmful. Guided by her memory, she arrived at the well in the courtyard, scooped up a spoonful of well water to quench her thirst, and felt more at ease after drinking the sweet water and smelling the air after the rain. Recalling his previous life's arduous cultivation, he had abstained from grains early on after reaching the golden core stage, missing out on all the delicious foods of this world. Mu Yungui could only summarize his past life in 8 words. Magnificent and grand, yet mediocre and unproductive. One must diligently cultivate throughout one's life to become an experience point. At this moment, Mu Yungui had a thought. Why not just live out my life peacefully like this? Avoid all the riches of my past life and simply lie down and relax. Make up for what you haven't experienced yet. See the sights of this world and witness the wonders of life. Just thinking about it is exhilarating. Cultivating immortality. No, that's too dangerous. There are not only bad women, but also bad old men. Lost in thought, Mu Yungui's stomach unexpectedly growled. I'm still just an ordinary mortal. Since things have come to this, let's eat first. Without thinking too much about it, Mu Yungui decided to go out and get some food. He patted his pockets, finding them empty. But then he remembered his past life, and it seemed that apart from the land deed to this house, he had nothing of any value. Suddenly, I smiled with relief. Mu Yungui decided to go out and take a look first. Relying on my memory, I had just stepped out of the alley and onto a street when I heard a commotion. Upon hearing this, they looked over and saw 2 burly men harassing a woman. Someone just happened to be there to help me. Mu Yungui's eyes lit up, already imagining what was going to happen next, and he immediately walked over there. It was midday, and although the spring rain had just stopped, there were hardly any pedestrians on Chicken Tail Street. It was unusually quiet. Aunt Joe, where's this week's protection money? The burly man shouted at the woman at the door of one of the few remaining open pastry shops on the street. Lu Ren, didn't we just pay the protection fee the day before yesterday? Besides, I'm raising a child alone and the expenses are huge. I really don't have any money left, the woman said helplessly, protecting her 4-year-old child behind her. I don't care. Everyone on this street has paid, and you're the only one left. It wouldn't be right for you not to contribute something, would it? The woman looked embarrassed, unsure how to explain since she really couldn't come up with the money. The shops that were still open nearby seemed to have become accustomed to what was happening and dared not utter a sound. Just then, a young man in a blue robe suddenly appeared on the somewhat empty street. He had a handsome face, but he was holding a brick in his hand, which seemed out of place with the style of the painting. The boy, holding a brick in his hand, walked up to the burly man and looked up at him. The woman recognized the boy in front of her, but they had little interaction. She knew he was a little orphan from a remote alley, and although he often committed petty theft, he was not a bad person. Did the woman arrive here because she couldn't stand the two and wanted to intervene as a hero? But the other party wasn't joking. The woman only hoped the child wouldn't try to be a hero. This little guy wants to play the hero. Seeing the other party's posture, Lu Ren wondered if he had read some martial arts novels and was trying to be a hero. Just as the two burly men were about to roll up their sleeves and show some care to the innocent-looking but foolish boy in front of them, the boy slowly turned around and faced the woman. Protection fee. The young man turned the brick to the woman, his eyes flashing with a fierce light, and shouted, "Two burly men, oh. Woman, ooh. Mu Yungui, Delta. No, buddy." The two burly men and the woman were all taken aback and exclaimed in unison. So the other party was trying to steal our business. Chapter 2, The King of Cocktail Street. No, Auntie, you're just going to give the protection money to these two idiots. Tusk. Mu Yungui glanced thoughtfully at the two burly men in front of him. These two strongmen are obviously trained to use brute force. They won't work. Holding a brick, Mu Yungui waved his hand dismissively, then said to the two burly men in front of him, "You're all free now, go play somewhere else." Even the two burly men with their good tempers couldn't hold back any longer. "Erlang, a few peanuts, you're this drunk. Where did this boy, who looks only 14 or 15 years old, get his courage? Kid, do you know what you're saying? Don't you want to live?" Lu Ren, the leader, took a step forward, leaned down to look at Mu Yungui, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Seeing this, the woman realized the man truly intended to kill her, so she smiled apologetically and hurriedly tried to pull the boy away. "Lu Ren, he's just a kid. He's only joking around, don't take it seriously." After hesitating for a moment, he gritted his teeth and reluctantly pulled out a tattered cloth bag from his pocket, which contained a small half bag of loose silver. "Lu Ren, Long Tao, this is our last bit of money, our lifeline. Please don't hold it against us." The woman handed over her last coin, hoping the man would spare the boy's life. Mu Yungui showed no sign of nervousness. After the woman took out the cloth bag, he quickly snatched the dragon boat away just as she was about to get her hands on it. "I'll accept this silver. Now I officially declare myself the overlord of Chicken Tail Street, in short." "Street fighter," Mu Yungui calmly addressed the woman. "You two idiots go buy some melon seeds and eat them somewhere else. Don't try to be bullies." "You're asking for it?" Even someone with a good temper couldn't hold back any longer, so Lu Ren unleashed a whistling punch, intending to teach the boy a lesson. Few people in the entire city of Suzhou could withstand the force of his punch. Good timing. Seeing that he had successfully provoked the other party, a glint flashed in Mu Yungui's eyes. Without further ado, he quickly circulated his spiritual energy, ducked to dodge the other party's punch, and then smashed a brick into the other party's ribs. Lu Ren was surprised to realize that the other party was so fast. To his surprise, as the immense force struck, the sound of bones shattering followed the shattering of the bricks. Before Long Tao could react, Lu Ren, who had thrown the punch, was already sent flying, falling straight down in the street. Those around who noticed what was happening were speechless with astonishment. Lu Ren remained motionless. His sleep quality appeared to be quite good. Long Tao didn't understand why this young man in front of him had such strange power. If he knew, he and Lu Ren were both well-known martial artists in the city. Now that things had come to this, Long Tao could only believe that Lu Ren had been caught off guard and was ambushed by the boy. Long Tao comforted himself, then focused his energy in his dantian, exhaled deeply, his forearm veins bulged, and his fist whistled through the air. A punch was thrown, aimed straight at the opponent's head. The onlookers were all shocked by the punch. "I'm afraid someone will die." Mu Yungui reacted quickly, turning his head and throwing a punch to meet the opponent's fist. Seeing this, the big man felt certain. If the other party dodged, it meant that the other party did have some strength. But if the other party did that, those arms that were like a woman's would definitely not be able to beat him. Mu Yungui frantically channeled his spiritual energy within his dantian, a glint of light flashing in his eyes. Then, with a bang, their fists collided, just when everyone watching nearby thought that the boy might not even be able to keep his hand. Snap! Another sound of bones breaking rang out. Long Tao, who thought he could shatter his opponent's arm, instead clutched his own arm and collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. Who are you?" "This strange power?" Long Tao asked, puzzled. Long Tao gritted his teeth and looked up at the boy, only to see that the boy was bleeding from all 7 orifices, with blood seeping from his skin, and his eyes were somewhat blank. "It seems that my attack has had an effect. Sure enough, how could someone be so strong at such a young age? That's too unreasonable. Does he really think he's the protagonist in a comic book?" Seeing this, Long Tao calmed down, realizing that his opponent must also be seriously injured. so he braced himself with one hand and tried to get up. Mu Yungui gave him no chance and delivered another whip kick. Even though he was in terrible shape, Long Tao had no power to resist. Mu Yungui knocked down the two men, and his own appearance was also quite miserable, but it had nothing to do with the two men on the ground. He circulated his spiritual power too violently. Although he had the cultivation techniques and combat experience from his previous life, his physical condition and spiritual energy levels could not keep up with his use of it, which led to his current state of exploding body and bleeding. Hearing the commotion, the shopkeepers who had already closed on the street peeked out and were astonished to see what had just happened. It seems the other party is also there to collect protection money, just with a different person oppressing everyone. It looks like both sides are seriously injured. But is this handsome young man really that strong? One punch, one kick, one brick, the fight's over. Mu Yungui shook his head and murmured, "My physique is still too weak. I need to temper it properly." After saying that, he kicked Long Tao, who was beneath him, again. The other man convulsed once more. "Give me all your money, or we'll die here. If you're not satisfied, you can call in reinforcements later." Mu Yungui raised his hand and pointed to the location of his home. "I live there. I like it best when I beat the little one and the big one comes, and when I beat the big one and the old one comes." At this moment, Mu Yungui, bleeding from all 7 orifices, lowered his head and revealed a terrifying smile to Long Tao. The secret to making money lies within that. As if he had seen a monster, Long Tao tremblingly handed over all the silver he had looted to the boy in front of him. "Hey, you over there, you can't sleep here." Mu Yungui walked towards Lu Ren, who was still sleeping, and kicked him several times. Lu Ren woke up suddenly in pain and was about to get up when another punch came at him before he could figure out what had just happened. Bang! "Sai, never mind, I'll take it myself." After knocking the other person unconscious again, Mu Yungui took out the protection money from the shops from the other person's pocket. "From now on, I'll protect Chicken Tail Street. If anyone comes looking for trouble, I'll beat them to death and won't care about the burial. It's also because I'm kind-hearted. If it were anyone else, you two would have already committed suicide." Long Tao, kneeling on the ground, listened to the boy's mutterings and was drenched in sweat. Having finished everything, the young man clapped his hands. Based on his strength, the other party should be bedridden for several months. Mu Yungui nodded in satisfaction. Looking at his somewhat terrifying appearance, Mu Yungui sighed for no reason. "Sai, making money is really hard work." At this moment, Long Tao dared not stay any longer. He staggered to his feet, grabbed the unconscious Lu Ren, and hurriedly fled the scene. When Mu Yungui looked back, there were even fewer shops open on the street. But he didn't care much, and, covered in blood, headed for another slightly more bustling street. If you have money, you can buy things anywhere. Watching the boy walk away, and seeing so many unexpected things happen in such a short time, the woman withdrew her somewhat worried gaze. "Mother." At this moment, the child at her feet tugged at her trouser leg, pointed to the table next to her, and said in a childish voice, "That's what the older brother threw over." Following the child's gaze, they were shocked to see the shops on the street and the silver that the two men had stolen from them. Dozens of small cloth bags were placed on the table. The woman was astonished. She had been watching the boy the whole time, so when did he throw the silver over? The woman rummaged through her purse and found that only a small piece of silver was missing. The Suzhou River divides the city in two. The upper and lower districts have completely different styles. Unlike the lower district where Mu Yungui is located, the upper district is much more prosperous. On a street lined with luxurious mansions, a charred ruin stands out starkly. "This area is being rebuilt. Get out of here immediately." A warning sounded. 2 city guards roughly dragged a very dirty little beggar away. The beggar was small and thin, but upon closer inspection, she turned out to be a girl of only 14 or 15 years old. The little beggar was dressed in tattered clothes. His body was thin from hunger, and his arms were covered with scars of various sizes, some of which had not yet healed. A bright red scar that ran from his neck up to his cheek looked somewhat terrifying on his thin but extremely beautiful face. The little beggar clutched his thin arm tightly, his body trembling slightly, and said helplessly, "This is my home." "You're saying this is your home?" "I said this isn't your home." The city guard's eyes were icy, and he placed his hand on the scabbard of the longsword and shook it. Although the little beggar was not very old, her long period of hardship had made her very good at reading the room. "The other party is not willing to reason with me. Rather, they have never reasoned with me in the first place." After all, what happened that night would have done no good even if he had knelt at the Yamen gate for 3 days and 3 nights. Everyone acted as if nothing had happened. But do they really think they can't see this dark ruin, the government office or the city lord? The little beggar recalled that rainy night when a snow-white longsword appeared out of thin air like a ghost, mercilessly piercing through everyone's chest. The firelight reflected off his face, the rain soaked him, and screams filled the air. He wanted to rush in to save people, but the flames were raging, and he was burned in many places and was unable to get in. Finally, with all her might, the mother gripped the long sword that had pierced her chest tightly, and with her last breath she said to herself, "Survive." Of the more than 10 members of the Jiang family, only the girl survived. All that remained was a pile of burnt-out black ruins. The girl couldn't help but shudder at the thought of that scene. "If I don't have a home, where will I go?" Another city guard, seeing the despair and death in the girl's eyes, felt a pang of pity. He then said, "I have no right to interfere with where you want to go. Go out of the city or to the lower city, but in any case, do not show up here again. If you don't leave here, I'll have no choice but to throw you in jail for obstructing the government." Chapter 3, Little Beggar, Empress. Suzhou Lower District. Ignoring the surprised looks from the passers-by, Mu Yungui dragged his blood-covered body to another street to buy some ingredients and body-tempering herbs that could be purchased in the mortal world, before returning to his hut. After arriving home, Mu Yungui washed off the blood and grime from his body, brewed some medicinal liquid to roughly temper his body, and stabilized his unstable state of cultivation. It was already evening by then. In April, the weather in Suzhou is unpredictable. Even if a heavy rain has just fallen at noon, dark clouds may gather again, making the sky dark and gloomy. Mu Yungui finished meditating. The roast chicken I bought for dinner was already a bit cold. Seeing this, Mu Yungui transformed spiritual energy into fire at her fingertips. In an instant, the roasted chicken turned golden brown, and a fragrant aroma wafted out, making Mu Yungui's mouth water. "Go for it, just build it." At this moment, a strong wind picked up, as if a torrential downpour was about to begin, and even he, wearing only a thin shirt, felt a chill. Before a slightly dilapidated wooden door, the little beggar who had come to the outer city unknowingly ended up here. The aroma wafting from inside the house stirred up the girl's suppressed hunger, and she knocked on the door with slight trepidation. Coming, just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by a knock on the door. Mu Yungui opened the courtyard gate with some impatience. A dirty little beggar stood in front of him. "Whose child is this?" Mu Yungui stared at the frail figure who had come to knock on the door. "Little beggar, take one more look. Little beggar, take one more look. Little beggar." "Jiang Ryuachin," Mu Yungui exclaimed in astonishment. "If I'm not mistaken, then I shouldn't be mistaken." The little beggar in front of me, who was about 13 or 14 years old, with a thin and dirty face, was actually the cold and fierce female emperor of the demonic path from my previous life. At this moment, Jiang Ryuachin was wearing a tattered and thin dress, shivering in the wind. The girl looked up at the handsome young man before her, wondering how he recognized her. Hearing that strangely familiar voice, she felt a strange unease. The girl's heart was beating very fast. "Young master, do you recognize me?" Jiang Ryuachin frowned and looked up at the handsome young man in front of her who seemed familiar. Mu Yungui remained silent, his mind beginning to recall the past life of Jiang Ryuachin, the demonic empress. The Jiang family of Suzhou, the Jiang family that was wiped out a year ago for unknown reasons. He kept searching through his memories of his past life and his predecessor, and finally confirmed that Jiang Ryuachin was also from Suzhou. Unexpectedly, the cold and beautiful demonic empress who struck fear into the hearts of righteous cultivators in her past life came from the same place as her when she was young. It's just that she never met her at this time in her past life. The timeline has shifted, so the two people who brushed past each other in their previous lives have met again. Unfortunately, judging from the timeline, the Jiang family is probably. Mu Yungui's eyes darkened, and Jiang Ryuachin's condition at this moment was self-evident. The time he traveled to was too late to prevent the Jiang family tragedy. The mastermind behind all of this is none other than Shen Lingxiao, the sect leader of the Tai Xuan sword sect in his previous life. Jiang Ryuachin possesses the heavenly evolution divine demon heart, one of the 10 ancient physiques, and Shen Lingxiao's daughter, Shen Qinghen, also possesses this physique. A cultivator with this mindset cultivates through their mental state. A calm and detached mind, looking down upon all living beings, will evolve into a divine mind. A mind filled with despair and hatred of the world will evolve into a demonic mind. A single thought can turn a god into a demon. Although the two had never crossed paths, and Shen Qinghan didn't even know Jiang Ruoqin's name at this time, Shen Lingxiu accidentally discovered Jiang Ruoqin's special physique in this place. That would be a different story. The most unique aspect of this constitution is that cultivators possessing the heavenly evolution divine demon heart can fuse with the heart of another. All of this was merely a precondition for forcing Jiang Ruoqin into the demonic path in order to later seize the girl's heart. This was to create the conditions for Shen Qinghan to merge his divine heart with his demonic heart, thus achieving the body required to become an immortal. However, in her previous life, even when faced with the condemnation of the entire righteous path, Jiang Ruoqin resisted them all and even cultivated to the peak of the tribulation transcending stage, becoming the infamous demonic Empress. Even so, they didn't let the other side succeed. However, at this moment, a childish voice interrupted Mu Yungui's recollection. Young master, could you please give me some food?" Seeing the other party remain silent, Jiang Ruoqin looked up and mustered her courage to ask. "I can be your maid. As long as I have food to eat, I'll do anything." The girl stood with her head bowed, quietly waiting for the other party's reply in the dim light. Mu Yungui truly wanted to keep her by his side, but faced with the petite girl before him, he hesitated. If he took her in and altered the timeline, the future might be beyond his control. Who knows, if the other party finds out, Shen Lingxiu might come through the internet and kill him. Mu Yungui gazed at the gloomy sky, as if a storm was brewing, lost in thought. Jiang Ruoqin nervously pursed her pale lips, looked at Mu Yungui, and knew the answer in her heart. It's probably because she dislikes herself. "Young master, if it's inconvenient, then forget it. I'll leave right away." "Wait a minute," Mu Yungui interrupted the girl, replying. "I might be struggling to take care of myself right now, so I can't take you in. But I do have food." A moment later, he took out the freshly heated roast chicken from the hut. Upon seeing this, the girl quickly shook her head. "It doesn't need to be so precious. I only ask for enough to fill my stomach. Simple food will do." "It's all right, this is what I have left. You can eat here, and then we can find somewhere to take shelter from the rain." Seeing that the young man in front of her said this, Jiang Ruoqin sat down side by side on the door frame. Jiang Ruoqin ate while Mu Yungui watched. Gazing at her slender, petite figure, Mu Yungui fell into deep thought. She had struggled to survive in such circumstances since she was just over 10 years old, enduring countless acts of despair before falling into the demonic path and becoming the demon Empress. He only came to his senses after the other person finished eating, thanked him, and left the alley. He silently returned to his room, changed into a black fitted suit, and with a calm expression began to sit cross-legged with his eyes closed. About the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, a torrential downpour began, accompanied by lightning and thunder, just like the rain that had fallen at midday. Jiang Ruoqin saw a roof that seemed like a place where she could barely hide, so she hurriedly ran there. In the chaos, his ankle was struck by something, and he fell to the ground, unable to stand up for a moment. Retracting his control over the wooden stick, the rogue cultivator Xiao Dai recalled the client's request. "The more despair and frustration you inflict on the girl without her being discovered, the better. Just keep her alive." Although I don't know why the person wearing the Tai Xuan sword sect's robes, who is clearly from a famous righteous sect in the Eastern continent, would do this to a mere mortal girl. However, the other party was quite generous, giving him 500 spirit stones directly, which was a considerable reward for a rogue cultivator like himself. Xiao Dai could only marvel at how accurately the other party judged people. With some effort, tonight's heavy rain will allow the girl to suffer even more torment and hardship. Mu Yungui looked up at Suzhou City, which was already shrouded in night, picked up an oil paper umbrella from inside the house, pushed open the door, and went out. The streets of Chicken Tail were deserted, except for the torrential rain and flashes of lightning. All the houses had turned off their lights and were closed for the night. Jiang Ruoqin was soaking wet and huddled in a corner of Chicken Tail Street. Although she could avoid the rain, her body temperature was gradually dropping due to the cold wind after she fell earlier. The girl hoped the heavy rain would stop soon, and was somewhat annoyed that she hadn't found a place to shelter herself beforehand. Feeling rather bored while hiding in the shadows, Xiao Dai was about to close his eyes and rest when he caught sight of a young man in black with an oil paper umbrella walking towards Jiang Ruoqin in the distance. That young man from earlier? Xiao Dai paused, secretly wondering, Judging from his demeanor, it seems he's about to have a change of heart and want to save someone. I was planning to kill you tomorrow, but I didn't expect to deliver myself to your doorstep. Using the thunderous light, Mu Yungui saw the girl huddled in a corner under the eaves, and the girl also noticed him. Their eyes met. In the darkness, Xiao Dai slowly approached Mu Yungui, when suddenly a thought struck him. If he killed the boy who wanted to save her right in front of her, the effect would definitely be excellent. 5 steps, 3 steps, 1 step. Xiao Dai slowly stepped out and silently stood behind the boy, ready to launch an attack. Just as they were about to make their move, at the critical moment, Mu Yungui suddenly turned around, quickly put away his oil paper umbrella and swung it backward. The umbrella shattered instantly, and a sharp sword aura slashed straight towards Xiao Dai. A cultivator? Before Xiao Dai could react, a deep bone-revealing wound had been slashed across his chest by the oil paper umbrella. Xiao Dai was in excruciating pain and gritted his teeth, retreating. How did you find me? Chi refining stage? And a sword cultivator at that, who are you? Despite being severely injured, Xiao Dai, being a Foundation establishment cultivator, kept his distance without showing any panic, though he was somewhat surprised. The opponent concealed their presence too well. Mu Yungui remained calm and did not answer Xiao Dai's question. Instead, he continued to press forward and throw punches after failing to succeed. The sword energy was like a festering sore, and Xiao Dai's body was unable to recover for a while Mu Yungui was already in front of him. Damn it, where did such a young cultivator come from? Xiao Dai gritted his teeth. His injuries made him somewhat powerless, while the opponent's attacks had no weaknesses like those of a top-level martial artist, making it impossible for him to escape. The two became entangled in a fight. Mu Yungui formed his 5 fingers into claws, seized the opportunity, and suddenly grabbed at the wound on the other party's chest, delivering another heavy blow. Xiao Dai finally panicked. He didn't understand why he, a Foundation establishment cultivator, was being suppressed by a Chi refining cultivator. Although he was ashamed and angry, he was helpless. After a short while, he finally found an opportunity. His storage ring flashed, and an ancient longsword hung in the air, which Xiao Dai grasped with one hand. Seeing this, Mu Yungui showed no panic. With a slight smile, he suddenly appeared beside Xiao Dai. Magic! Xiao Dai's fear intensified when he saw that the other party had mastered magic at such a young age. He had only accepted a commission to torment a mortal girl, and he didn't know which deity he had offended. Xiao Dai, who was holding a sword in one hand, did not expect the other party to appear beside him. What surprised him even more was that the other party actually rushed up and took the sword with both hands. Mu Yungui gripped the opponent's weapon tightly with both hands, exerted his strength, and pushed forward. The longsword was no longer under the opponent's control. Instead, it followed his own power and slashed towards the opponent's neck. Xiao Dai had sharpened his sword on a whim earlier, which made it exceptionally sharp, and blood was gushing from his neck. Don't worry, dizziness is normal, Mu Yungui said coldly. Xiao Dai felt a loss of strength, and then collapsed in the rain. A battle in reality lasts only a few breaths. Huddled in the corner, Jiang Ryuachin could vaguely see the battle through the flashing lightning. The person who appeared out of nowhere, fighting this young master, and the sword that appeared out of nowhere. It's so similar to what happened that night. Just as Jiang Ryuachin was about to ask the boy in front of her a question, she suddenly felt dizzy and fainted against the wall. Seeing this, Mu Yungui prepared to go forward to check. Just then, a sharp whooshing sound suddenly rang out. He turned around abruptly and saw a flying sword piercing through the rain like lightning, rushing towards him. Before he could even mount any defensive measures, the flying sword struck with the force of a thunderbolt, carrying immense sword energy that pierced through his chest and pinned him firmly to the wall 3 or 4 steps away from the girl. In the darkness, a monk of about 26 or 27 years old with disheveled hair slowly walked towards them, dressed in a single robe. Even the rain seemed to fear him, avoiding him and not daring to drop a single drop on him. Mu Yungui struggled, trying to free himself from the long sword at his waist, but to no avail. He stared at his opponent with a gloomy expression, having already made up his mind. A sword cultivator at the Golden Core stage. Chapter 4, Refining Chi to kill Golden Core. Giant Chi didn't care about Xiao Dai's death. Rather, his mission was to deal with this situation, since the sect leader wasn't sure if anyone else would discover the girl's extremely terrifying physique. As the sect leader's dark sword, he needed to find out who was after the young girl. To be honest, I'm more curious about your identity than your motives. Giant Chi walked over slowly, asking the boy in front of him with a hint of curiosity. Jianqi watched the entire battle just now. He's only a little over 10 years old, but he seems to have a lot of combat experience. Jianqi leaned forward, carefully observing the expression on the young man's face, and asked with a smile, "Young man, who are you?" Mu Yungui simply struggled, without offering any explanation. "Since you won't tell me, then I'll have to search your soul." Seeing the boy's attitude, Jianqi didn't waste any words. After all, the boy's body had already been pierced by his flying sword, and he would die soon. If he couldn't get any information out of him, it would be more convenient to search his soul directly. Although he may lack memories, as long as there are some clues, given the sword sect's influence in this area, it shouldn't be difficult to find out the boy's identity. With his right hand extended like a claw, Jianqi prepared to directly use the soul-searching technique, while the boy in front of him was still trying to pull out the sword stuck in his abdomen, struggling hard. Something's not right. Just as his right hand was about to touch Mu Yungui's head, Jianqi stopped. Something's just not right. There's a slight sense of incongruity. Jianqi recalled the previous scene, trying to find that slight sense of incongruity. On the street, the blood of the dead Xiao Dai spread with the rain and slowly flowed to his feet. Only then did Jianqi suddenly realize something was strange. It seems to lack a bit of bloodshed. He pierced the boy with his flying sword and pinned him to the wall. The boy struggled, but not a drop of blood came out. Realizing something was wrong, Jianqi quickly prepared to retreat. If the boy had a backup plan, then the attack would definitely have occurred at this moment. Although the opponent only had the cultivation level of qi refining, and the entire cultivation world had never heard of someone killing a golden core cultivator while only at the qi refining stage, we still cannot be careless. As long as you dodge that deliberate fatal blow, victory is assured. We will win. For some reason, Jianqi felt a little scared. Even though the other party was only a qi refining stage cultivator, he could sense that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Sure enough, just as Jianqi started to move, Mu Yungui, who was pinned to the wall, turned into a ball of dark blue flame with a bang and bloomed in the rain. "Puppet technique," Jianqi exclaimed in surprise as he waved his sleeve to block the eerie blue flames. It's not that this spell is particularly advanced. On the contrary, it's a very basic spell, using the spiritual energy within the body to construct a spirit puppet that can assist in combat. However, if one is not skilled enough in this method, the puppet will appear stiff and will not be able to deceive the eye. To Jianqi's surprise, the opponent's spirit puppet was so lifelike, almost like a real person, that he almost fooled it himself. Moreover, this spirit puppet could even kill Xiao Dai, a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator in battle, despite being a level above it. If I hadn't dodged that spiritual fire, it might have actually hurt me. The sword sect robes that Jianqi was wearing could be defended against by ordinary swords and blades, but the cuffs had already been burned and torn. After deducing the opponent's strategy, Jianqi breathed a sigh of relief, because this technique consumed a great deal of spiritual energy, and if the opponent were to appear in his true form at this moment, he would definitely not be able to defeat him. But where could the boy's true form be hiding? After standing still, Jianqi began to recall the battlefield. The direction the boy came from, Xiao Dai's corpse, the oil paper umbrella on the ground, the unconscious girl. At this moment, apart from the sound of rain and the flashing lightning and muffled thunder, Jianqi could not hear any other sounds. Could he have fled when he couldn't defeat the enemy? Jianqi thought of this possibility and prepared to draw the long sword from the wall. At that moment, a thunderclap resounded in the sky. Boom! In an instant, the thunder masked something. For example, the sound of a boy's footsteps emerging from the shadows behind Jiang Ruochen. The lightning illuminated something. For example, an arm that pierced through the abdomen of Sword 7. Jianqi was bewildered, but then he realized what was happening and flew into a rage. He circulated the spiritual energy in his body, and a powerful pressure crushed and sent the boy who had pierced through him flying. Turning his head to look at the boy behind him, who had been thrown back by the pressure of spiritual energy, and was now lying on the ground, Jianqi hurriedly took out a bottle of healing pills from his spatial ring. Even with severe injuries, a golden core stage cultivator can recover with timely medical treatment. He still had his natal flying sword to unleash, along with talismans, sword techniques, magical artifacts, and numerous other offensive methods. However, even with his eyes gradually blurring, Jianqi still managed to see what the boy was clutching tightly in his hand as he flew backward, his own golden core. Blood gushed from the wound on his waist. "How so? I'm a golden core cultivator. Jian Qi's words began to sound weak, tinged with a hint of grievance and regret. The rain no longer avoided the man as before, but instead soaked his shirt as he finished speaking. Then the young golden core cultivator, dressed in a single shirt, slowly collapsed with resentment, just like the cannon fodder Zio Dai. The heavy rain was still falling, and the thunder hadn't stopped, but the streets here were rather quiet. No one can stand up. After about the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Mu Yungui slowly started to move. He struggled to his feet and, dragging his weary body, cleaned up the battlefield in the pouring rain, piling the corpses of the two cultivators together. Noticing that the golden core cultivator also had a storage ring, he painstakingly removed it from him. Including the weakling storage ring from before, he had actually gained all the possessions of the two cultivators. He then shakily pulled out the sword stuck in the wall and the sword that had fallen to the ground, put them into Zio Dai's storage ring, took the oil paper umbrella he had brought, and then pounced straight on the two corpses. Mu Yungui's body suddenly exploded, transforming into a burst of spiritual fire that incinerated the two corpses completely. 5 minutes later, a boy appeared from a distance, his body still oozing blood despite the heavy rain. I wouldn't have dared to think like this, even when I was undergoing tribulation in my past life. At this moment, Mu Yungui had no spiritual energy within him. He simply walked shakily toward them, muttering, "I can brag about this for a lifetime. Even the novels I read in my past life that featured systems wouldn't dare to write like this, right?" He bent down and picked up the two storage rings from the ground, then quickly walked towards the unconscious girl under the eaves. Jiang Ruochen, the price of saving you is really high," Mu Yungui said with a wry smile, wiping his face which was wet from the rain. He himself hadn't expected that old man Shen Lingxia would be so cunning, actually sending a golden core sword cultivator to observe from the shadows. He had calculated that it might only be a foundation establishment cultivator. Fortunately, the opponent created an opening, allowing me to win this battle in such an extreme way. Even with my extraordinary cultivation in my past life, I was helpless, and the price I paid was enormous. In order to create two spirit puppets capable of killing cultivators of higher levels, he consumed more than half of his life essence, and his Qi was severely injured. If the Qi were personified as a lake, the depletion of spiritual energy would only reduce the lake's water level. However, by expending his own resources to create two spirit puppets, he not only drained the lake but also filled it up halfway, and he even stomped on it. I used to be able to take on 10, but now I'm afraid I can only take on 5. Mu Yungui shook his head and said with a self-deprecating smile. With great effort, he lifted the petite girl in front of him. Gazing at her delicate yet thin face and the terrifying-looking scar, Mu Yungui was somewhat lost in thought. So this is what the demon Empress, who fought me for decades to a draw, looked like when she was little. This shouldn't be the case. If it weren't for Shen Lingxiao's cruel hand, what kind of life would Jiang Ruochen have led? Become a genius cultivator or live an ordinary life? Lost in thought, the boy, trembling, carried the girl towards home. Chapter 5, I also have a grudge against them. Suzhou's weather is as unpredictable and elusive as a teenage girl's mood. Last night it was pouring rain, but by noon today the sun is blazing. Jiang Ruochen slowly woke up, feeling as if she were surrounded by softness. She slowly opened her eyes and looked around. She was in a completely unfamiliar room, lying on a comfortable bed. She playfully ran her hands around in the soft blankets, savoring the warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. I haven't slept in a bed in a long time, so if it's a dream, I'll just indulge in whatever I want. Jiang Ruochen murmured softly. She remembered that last night she had taken shelter from the rain under one eaves, and a very handsome young man had come to find her with an umbrella. That young master. Jiang Ruochen tried hard to recall everything that happened last night. She reached out and lifted the blanket, only to be surprised to find herself seemingly in that young master's house. The girl suddenly realized that it wasn't a dream. Could it be that young master who brought me here? We need to find them and thank them as soon as possible. Jiang Ruochen had no time to worry about much else. She quickly put on her slightly damp, dirty clothes from the bedside table, got out of bed, and prepared to find that young master to ask him for clarification. Before he could take 2 steps after getting out of bed, he saw Mu Yungui lying on the floor at his feet, covered in blood, his life hanging in the balance. Mu Yungui felt as if he had ordered 100 elephants to massage his back, and his whole body was in excruciating pain. He struggled to lift his heavy eyelids, and his vision gradually cleared. He saw a blurry figure sitting obediently by the bedside, staring blankly at him. "Young master, you're finally awake." When the girl saw that Mu Yungui had woken up, her tense expression relaxed slightly, and the worry on her face lessened considerably. Mu Yungui felt a little strange, seeing that she was being stared at by the former demon Empress in her childhood form while she was unconscious. So she wanted to get up and get out of bed immediately. "Young master, you are still injured. It's best not to get up." Seeing this, Jiang Ryuachin panicked but didn't know what to do. Gritting his teeth and ignoring the girl's pleas, Mu Yungui struggled to his feet, his body trembling uncontrollably. He didn't care about this, but simply took out 2 spatial rings from his pocket, and then mobilized the last bit of spiritual power in his body to cover them with his divine sense. The other one even has a restriction. Fortunately, there were no restrictions in the Foundation establishment, Cultivator's spatial ring. The divine sense spread out, revealing pills, talismans, and weapons inside. Mu Yungui made a grasping motion in his hand, and a white porcelain bottle appeared in his palm. Mu Yungui wasn't in a hurry to open the spatial ring that belonged to a golden core cultivator, since he knew he could easily break through these low-level restrictions once he recovered. He poured out a pill to restore his chi and blood, and slowly swallowed it. The abundant vitality repaired his body along his meridians, and Mu Yungui immediately felt much better. How long did I sleep?" Mu Yungui asked Jiang Ryuachin, who was still in a state of surprise. "The young master before me is an immortal. He must be a master immortal with the secret to eternal youth." Seeing what had just happened, Jiang Ryuachin had some guesses in her mind. She quickly composed herself and replied anxiously, "Young master should have been unconscious for a day and a night. After I woke up, I carried you to bed, and more than half a day has passed." Mu Yungui looked around and saw that the weeds in the courtyard had been cleared away, and the dirty and messy furniture had been arranged neatly and cleanly. He took the girl's thin little hand and looked at it. The many scars that were there before had not diminished, and now some small scars had appeared. "Did you clean the yard?" Although he already knew the answer in his heart, Mu Yungui still couldn't help but ask, rubbing his forehead. My benefactor gave me food, so I should do something to repay him." Jiang Ryuachin looked at Mu Yungui, her eyes filled with fear and unease. Jiang Ryuachin looked at the other person with a hint of unspeakable helplessness in her eyes. Had she done something wrong? "Young master, about last night." Jiang Ryuachin mustered all her courage, raised her head, and looked at Mu Yungui with eyes like a frightened deer, asking cautiously. What happened last night might be related to what happened a year ago, and Jiang Ryuachin didn't want to give up this opportunity to potentially find out the truth. Mu Yungui then found a bottle of ointment for treating external injuries in his spatial ring, and slowly applied it to the girl's wounds. Jiang Ryuachin felt a cool, slightly itchy sensation on her hands, but she did not break free. "After witnessing what happened yesterday, did you have some guesses?" "Suzhou, the Jiang family, what happened a year ago and last night." As Mu Yungui began to speak, Jiang Ryuachin nodded. "Have you ever considered that it might be done by a so-called celestial being like me?" Mu Yungui didn't want to hide anything, so while he was recovering from his injuries, he decided to tell the girl in front of him the whole truth. I've thought about it, but I'm just a mortal. Why would those immortal masters do these things?" Jiang Ryuachin lowered her head, her small hands clenched into fists, as if trying to suppress the fear in her heart, quietly waiting for the other party to tell the truth. "Your physique is extraordinary. To those cultivators, it's practically a rare treasure." Looking at the frail girl before him, Mu Yungui felt a surge of pity, but he still didn't hesitate to reveal the cruel truth to her without reservation. She should know this. You should know the saying, "A common man is innocent, but possessing a treasure is a crime." In their eyes, you are like an unripe fruit that needs careful nurturing to ripen. And everything you have experienced is the result of their manipulation in the dark. When you are swallowed by despair, their goal will be achieved. This is the truth I've told you. I wonder if you're willing to believe it. Mu Yungui recounted the truth behind Jiang Ryuachin's tragic experiences in one breath, a truth that even he himself found somewhat cruel. Why do the people on the mountain care about the lives of those below? Ordinary people's lives are as worthless as grass. I killed that cultivator last night. The misfortunes you've experienced this year will probably all disappear. Those misfortunes were not your fault. So now that you know the truth, how do you feel?" Mu Yungui stared at the young demon empress before him, whose already thin and delicate body looked even more helpless. Jiang Ryuachin sat upright on the floor, her hands clasped tightly. Her dark red eyes did not reveal any particular sadness, nor did they shed a single tear. Jiang Ryuachin did not question what the boy said. "Young master, are you also a celestial master?" Jiang Ryuachin asked slowly, her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. That's right. What, you want revenge? Mu Yungui raised an eyebrow slightly and continued. That guy last night was nothing more than a watchdog. The ones who truly covet your heart are the sect leader and holy maiden of the righteous sect, named Shen Lingxiao and Shen Qinghen. Mu Yun then told the other party about the divine demon heart of that day. After saying that, a hint of confusion appeared in the girl's eyes again. In a young girl's heart, shouldn't a righteous cultivator be a benevolent deity who punishes evil, promotes good, and upholds justice? Seeing this, Mu Yungui simply sighed and said, if killing an innocent person would grant you greater power to protect more people, what would you choose? Although the Shen father and daughter were extremely hypocritical villains, Mu Yungui still asked the question in this way, wanting to know Jiang Ruochen's thoughts. So that person is me. After Jiang Ruochen finished speaking, she lowered her head and remained silent, seemingly waiting for Mu Yungui to speak. Are you testing my thoughts? What I want is your own answer. Mu Yungui's tone was firm and left no room for doubt. Jiang Ruochen clenched her teeth, her heart filled with unease. She had no idea what the immortal master in front of her was planning, and she was afraid that saying the wrong thing would bring about her death. No matter what you think, I will never hurt you. I'm just a little curious about what Jiang Ruochen is thinking. Mu Yungui's voice was gentle as water, like a spring breeze brushing past Jiang Ruochen's ear. Upon hearing this, Jiang Ruochen's originally thin and calm face was instantly flooded with tears, and the last line of defense in the girl's heart was also pushed down by Mu Yungui. Jiang Ruochen sobbed, feeling wronged. Immortal master, why was that person me? Whether it's mother or father, we haven't done anything wrong. If it's because of me, then just take this heart away. As she finished speaking, the girl's voice grew softer and softer until it was almost inaudible. Mu Yungui stood silently to the side, letting the girl vent her grievances and suffering without saying a word. As the girl's crying gradually subsided, Mu Yungui slowly extended his fair, jade-like hand and gently stroked the girl's somewhat dirty hair. Master, my hair is dirty. The girl tilted her head away, wiped away the tears on her face, and tried her best to regain her usual expression. Do you want revenge? Mu Yungui stared at the girl before him and said slowly, although that sect does indeed do righteous things, those two people are no good. I suggest that blood must be used to pay for blood debts. Jiang Ruochen listened to the words of the handsome young man in front of her, understood what he meant, and knelt down on both knees. Immortal master, do I possess this special heart? Does that mean my aptitude is still acceptable? Yes, she is indeed exceptionally gifted, truly remarkable. Mu Yungui started to focus on the girl in front of him. I want to learn immortal arts. I want revenge. Seeing this, Mu Yungui smiled slightly and said softly, perfect. I also have a grudge against them. Chapter 6, The Walking Library of Humanoids. The slight confusion in Jiang Ruochen's eyes was replaced by her belief in revenge. He seemed to have become the girl's support. He wondered if the heavenly evolution demon heart within her would still succumb to demonic possession. Mu Yungui didn't know if what he was doing was right, but the moment he altered Jiang Ruochen's world line, their fates became inextricably intertwined. Jiang Ruochen solemnly performed the apprenticeship ceremony before Mu Yungui. Just as she was about to bow to the third disciple, Mu Yungui interrupted her, feigning a profound air, and said, I formed a master-disciple relationship with you because I value your talent. My only purpose is to avenge the Shen family father and daughter. There is no need for this final bow. If we achieve our goals in the future, we will dissolve our master-disciple relationship. Mu Yungui did not want to restrict the girl in front of him. Although they were rivals in their past life and Jiang Ruochen had a limitless future, Mu Yungui still had his own principles. We cannot use this master-disciple relationship to coerce the other party. Mu Yungui, that's my name. He looked at Jiang Ruochen and introduced himself. You can call me whatever you like. Although my current strength is somewhat weak, it is more than enough to teach Jiang Ruochen how to cultivate. He couldn't guarantee anything else, but when it came to teaching Jiang Ruochen, who possessed the heavenly evolution divine demon heart, even those powerful figures who dominated their respective regions couldn't guarantee it would be possible. With his astonishing talent for remembering cultivation techniques and mental cultivation methods through his sword spirit saint body, Mu Yungui was practically a walking encyclopedia. Add to that his experience from his previous life at the peak of the tribulation transcending stage, and he could easily be the old man inside the ring. Aside from techniques that require special physical attributes, allowing someone to peek at another person's technique is considered successfully stealing their knowledge. The most crucial point is that he had once seen Shen Qinghen cultivate the Dawn Spirit Divine Heart technique. In his previous life, through his own efforts, and with the help of my sect leader father, Shen Qinghen found the cultivation method unique to the Heavenly Evolution Divine Demon Heart when he was in the Golden Core stage. He resolutely abandoned the Tai Chuan Sword Sect cultivation method he had been practicing and instead focused on this unique secret manual. For those with special constitutions, it is best to cultivate their own unique mental techniques as early as possible, and the Heavenly Evolution Divine Demon Heart is no exception. Once she started practicing this mental cultivation method, her cultivation level and strength were greatly improved. After completing his cultivation of the mental technique, Shen Qinghen brazenly placed this heaven-level mental technique in the library, allowing the Sword Sect disciples to browse it at will. Although everyone knew that only she herself could successfully cultivate this mental technique, she simply remained indifferent as a saintess. Driven by intense curiosity, Mu Yungui still took a look and, after careful examination, confirmed that the Heavenly Evolution Divine Demon Heart was indeed required. It was necessary to use the Heavenly Evolution Divine Demon Heart to convert spiritual energy into the power of light. At this moment, as memories flooded his mind, Mu Yungui quickly searched the depths of his mind for the exclusive cultivation method of the Heavenly Evolution Divine Demon Heart, which contained only a few hundred words but endless mysteries. Jiang Ryuachin, can you read? Mu Yungui mentioned it briefly, just in case the demon Empress in her previous life was a real person in her childhood. He still had to mention it. Yes, I can read, the girl answered hastily, as if afraid that her handsome master would change his mind and refuse to accept her as a disciple. Master, just call me Ryuachin. Master? Mu Yungui's lips twitched, and a complicated expression appeared on his face. He seemed a little uncomfortable with Jiang Ryuachin's way of addressing him. But I felt secretly pleased. The tigress who chased and attacked him in his past life has become his adorable little apprentice. If Jiang Ryuachin were reborn with her memories intact, would she beat me to death if she saw this scene? Mu Yungui could hardly imagine that scene. Looking into the girl's expectant eyes, Mu Yungui didn't know what to say, but tentatively called out, Ryuachin. Jiang Ryuachin's soft voice rang out as she tilted her head in response. Seeing her master's strange expression, Jiang Ryuachin couldn't help but wonder. Had she said something wrong? She immediately tensed up and stammered. Master, did I say something wrong? No, not really. Just as the two were feeling somewhat awkward, Jiang Ryuachin's stomach started rumbling untimely. The girl hadn't eaten for a day and a night, and the sudden embarrassment caused a blush to rise on her face. Looking at the scene before him, Mu Yungui's lips curled into a slight smile, and he chuckled softly. Since things have come to this, let's eat first. After saying that, he slowly stood up. He had recovered a lot. He turned around and went into the room. He took off his blood-stained clothes, changed into clean clothes, and planned to go out to buy some food before returning. I'm going to buy some food. You stay home and wait for me to come back. Master, your health? Jiang Ryuachin asked with some concern. His gaze fell on the girl's filthy body, and Mu Yungui said softly, Don't worry, I'm fine. Go take a hot shower first and wash off the dirt. Jiang Ryuachin looks like a little beggar now. No, she is a little beggar. Mu Yungui used her restored spiritual power to heat up the water in the wooden tub before stepping out of the room with peace of mind. The girl stared at her reflection in the water in the wooden tub, her hair disheveled and her face dirty. I can't let Master see me looking so disheveled again. So, following Mu Yungui's instructions, she began to undress and prepare for a bath. I must not disgrace my master, the girl murmured to herself as she stepped into the steaming bath. As the warm water soaked her scarred skin, she began to wipe away the grime. Mu Yungui walked out of the pharmacy, and when no one was watching, he put all the medicine he was carrying into his ring with a thought. Medicinal herbs, paper and pens, ingredients. Fortunately, the spatial ring even contained gold leaves. After considering what he needed, Mu Yungui decided to buy everything at once and take it home. About half an hour later, the ring, which was the size of a wardrobe, was filled with the items he needed. Just as he was about to go back, Mu Yungui stopped in front of a clothing store. Inside the shop, a woman in her 30s, dressed elegantly, was clearly the owner. Seeing a guest lingering at the door, he came out with a smile. Oh, young master, would you like to buy some clothes? Although he had plenty of clothes, Jiang Ryuachin. After a moment's thought, he followed the shopkeeper inside. I'm buying women's clothing, he said bluntly. Oh, Tilda, so young master has such a hobby, Tilda, but if you put on rouge, You might indeed be even more alluring than the most beautiful courtesan. I'm quite envious of your beauty, Tilda. I bought it for someone else. Young man, you have a friend, right? I understand, Tilda. The store manager gave a meaningful look. What are these shop owners thinking all day long? Mu Yungui said, rubbing his forehead. After describing Jiang Ryuachen's figure, Mu Yungui picked out more than 10 pieces of clothing from the shopkeeper's selections. Only children make choices. Mu Yungui chooses to have it all. With a wave of his hand, he bought all the clothes he might wear. Young master, please come again next time. Seeing that the other party was actually a big customer, the shopkeeper's eyes smiled into a crescent moon. Without commenting, Mu Yungui returned to the courtyard after paying the bill. I wonder if Jiang Ryuachen is finished washing up. I should go back and copy down the Dawn Spirit Divine Heart mantra first. Planning what to do, Mu Yungui pushed open the courtyard gate and saw the girl with her back to him, quietly doing something by the wooden tub. "Oh, master." Jiang Ryuachen, whose hair was still wet, was startled when she saw Mu Yungui return. Jiang Ryuachen had washed away her filth and looked much cleaner, but the scars on her body were more noticeable, making her look pitiful. "What's wrong?" Mu Yungui was curious about what the girl was doing, so he walked over. The bathwater in the wooden tub was murky and turbid. Jiang Ryuachen felt a little ashamed. She had originally planned to secretly pour it out while Mu Yungui was away, but she didn't expect him to come back so quickly. So she was a little shy. He looked at the girl without saying anything, but after helping her pour out the soup, he took out some herbs to enhance her blood energy from his spatial ring, preparing to give her a medicinal bath. He put 2 fingers together, turned his spiritual energy into fire, heated the medicinal bath water, and brought out the medicinal properties of the herbs. "Let's wash it again, but it might hurt a bit, so you'll have to bear it. I'll go prepare the food." He gave the girl some instructions, then chose a pale white embroidered dress and handed it to her. "Master, thank you." Jiang Ryuachen did not refuse, after all her clothes were really unsightly. Jiang Ryuachen carefully held the clothes. "But this was given to me by my master, so I must be careful not to break it." After a while, when Mu Yungui brought out the food, Jiang Ryuachen had also finished bathing and was wearing a white dress, looking at Mu Yungui with some nervousness. Feeling a little uneasy, the girl was not quite used to such light and airy clothes. "Master, won't I look too ugly in this?" Looking at Jiang Ryuachen, who had already washed up, Mu Yungui was also taken aback. A brand new form of the young demon Empress Jiang Ryuachen. Her jet black hair was still damp, cascading down her shoulders. The girl, dressed in a pale white dress, had a slightly tense expression on her pale and thin face, and her scars looked rather heartbreaking. However, cultivators can regenerate their flesh and blood when they reach a certain level of cultivation. "She's so cute, but she's too thin. She needs to take good care of herself and get back in shape." "It's all right. Now that I've become the girl's master, I'll take good care of her." Chapter 7, The Strongest Aptitude. Several heavenly rank cultivation techniques that might have caused bloodshed in his previous life were casually copied into his notebook like rotten cabbage. If other cultivators saw them, they might not even be able to stabilize their Tao hearts. "You like stabbing people in the back. I'll copy all the martial arts techniques you've practiced. I also want Jiang Ryuachen to train even better than you." The cultivation techniques that Mu Yungui copied were not chosen randomly. They were all the techniques that Shen Qinghen had cultivated in his previous life, and now he had taken them all. "Do you enjoy stealing other people's bloodlines and opportunities? In this lifetime, I'll help you take them all." Mu Yungui was muttering to himself, while the girl across the table was quietly watching her master. Although she didn't understand much, the girl sat obediently, her curious eyes never leaving Mu Yungui. Everything still felt like a dream, and Jiang Ryuachen hadn't quite adjusted yet. About 10 minutes later, Mu Yungui put down the mental cultivation manual he had written in his hand and came to his senses, only to find that Jiang Ryuachen had not eaten yet. "Ryuachen?" Mu Yungui asked. "I'm waiting for master, I'm not hungry." Jiang Ryuachen waved her hand, indicating. "They're starving and still being stubborn. Let's eat first." "Master, you should eat first." Mu Yungui had no choice but to use his spiritual power to warm the food again and start eating. "Eat more, you're too thin." Tilda, before Jiang Ryuachen could swallow the food in her mouth, more food was put into her bowl. Mu Yungui kept putting food into the other person's bowl with her chopsticks. Jiang Ryuachen had not eaten such a sumptuous meal since that incident a year ago. "Master is so good, Tilda." Jiang Ryuachen still felt that this day was like a dream. After tidying up the table, Mu Yungui handed the manual to Jiang Ryuachen. "I killed that person last night. Although the Tai Xuan sword sect won't notice for the time being, I estimate they will send someone to Sioux City in about half a month. We'll definitely have to leave Suzhou then. Therefore, Ryuachin, you'd better embark on the path of cultivation within half a month and learn how to circulate your inner energy. Otherwise, you'll have a hard time when you're on the move. Mu Yungui put down his chopsticks and slowly explained his plan. Actually, it's not that we're in a huge rush, but we still hope that Jiang Ryuachin can start cultivating quickly. We can't just run away with a young girl, can we? It doesn't seem like it's impossible. Mu Yungui shook his head, dismissing the absurd idea from his mind. Jiang Ryuachin carefully picked up the manual, nodded solemnly, and began to read it. Seeing this, Mu Yungui also began his own cultivation. Feeling the surging energy within his body, he smiled bitterly, wondering how many rare and precious treasures would be needed to restore his foundation. Given Jiang Ryuachin's talent, she should be able to draw qi into her body in about a day, right? Thinking back to when he first embarked on his cultivation journey, it took him about half a day to sense spiritual energy. Mu Yungui didn't think Jiang Ryuachin would be faster than him, who possessed the Sword Spirit Saint body. Sword Spirit Holy Body. Just from the name, you can tell it's incredibly powerful. According to the timeline, Shen Qinghan will come to Suzhou in half a month to recruit disciples with cultivation aptitude. That's how I was tricked into joining in my previous life. But I'm just a freebie. Shen Qinghan's true purpose was to secretly observe Jiang Ryuachin, who had been persecuted for a year, and he also arranged for a demonic cultivator to be Jiang Ryuachin's master. Although he didn't know how Shen Qinghan had colluded with the demonic path, Mu Yungui was certain that Jiang Ryuachin's master was arranged by the other party, because this is what Jiang Ryuachin told him personally in his previous life. At that time, Mu Yungui had just broken through to the nascent soul stage when he received a mission from sect master Shen Lingxiao to kill Jiang Ryuachin, a demonic cultivator, and was instructed to bring her body back. Fueled by the desire to break through his current realm, he followed in Jiang Ryuachin's footsteps. At that time, Jiang Ryuachin was dressed in black, which accentuated her curvaceous figure. Her crimson eyes were like glass, and her peerless beauty made it unlikely that anyone would think that the person in front of them was a demon. Although Mu Yungui had broken through his cultivation level, he still couldn't suppress his opponent for some reason. After several entanglements, he inadvertently dragged the battlefield into the depths of the demon realm. The relationship between humans and demons is more like that of mortal enemies compared to demons. They are irreconcilable. Just as the two sides were locked in fierce combat and the outcome was uncertain, suddenly, a deafening roar resounded. A powerful demon came upon hearing the noise and, taking advantage of the two's exhaustion, bared its fangs and claws and pounced straight at Jiang Ryuachin. Mu Yungui, for the first time ever, intervened and blocked the great demon's attack. It wasn't out of pity, but if Jiang Ryuachin died here, Mu Yungui would definitely not survive alone in the depths of the demon realm. The two immediately understood each other and worked together to escape towards the outside of the demon realm. Finally, they managed to shake off the great demon in a mountain cave. While recovering from their injuries in the cave, the two tacitly refrained from attacking again, instead engaging in conversation. Jiang Ryuachin also recounted her story from when she first embarked on her cultivation journey. At the time, Mu Yungui simply thought these demonic cultivators were spreading falsehoods and ignored them. My thoughts returned to normal. When Mu Yungui came to his senses, he suddenly noticed that the already thin spiritual energy around him was flowing even faster. So he turned his head in confusion, and his gaze fell on Jiang Ryuachin. Some sign, oh. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the girl beside him entered a state of enlightenment that is extremely difficult to achieve. Is this someone who has just begun their practice? Around the girl's body, the previously wandering spiritual energy seemed to have found its home and surged towards her like a tide. How is this possible? In just over 10 minutes, could Ryuachin have already finished reading that cultivation manual and successfully guided the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into her body? Mu Yungui couldn't help but gasp in amazement. Faced with such an astonishing scene, Mu Yungui did not hesitate to take out a spirit stone from his spatial ring and crushed it forcefully in his hand. In an instant, a pure and extremely rich spiritual energy surged out like a torrent, quickly filling the entire courtyard. Then, as if drawn by some force, this powerful spiritual energy converged directly towards the vortex-like body of the girl. Could it be that Jiang Ryuachin's talent was the most outstanding in her previous life? Mu Yungui pondered to herself, a sense of doubt and shock welling up within her. Could it be that in her past life she was delayed by that demonic cultivator, which prevented her from displaying such astonishing talent? Thinking of this, Mu Yungui couldn't help but feel secretly fortunate that he had been able to save the girl. If she continued cultivating at this rate, she might even surpass him quickly. Mu Yungui was overjoyed. In this way, the girl in the future might be much stronger than in her previous life. Ignoring the loss of spiritual energy, Mu Yungui took out several talismans from his spatial ring and temporarily constructed a simple spiritual array. He crushed the spirit stone in his hand like shattered jade. The spiritual energy inside the room instantly became richer. Time passed slowly, and after more than half an hour, Jiang Ryuchen finally opened her dark red eyes. At this moment, her beautiful eyes gained a touch of liveliness, shining like stars in the night sky. Immediately afterwards, a mysterious and profound aura suddenly permeated the entire world, as if it came from the endless void. This wisp of Taoist energy slowly drifted down like a gentle stream, eventually settling on Jiang Ryuchen's brow. "A gift from heaven and earth," Mu Yungui murmured. Logically speaking, after a cultivator breaks through a realm, if they have the opportunity to become the strongest in that realm, the will of heaven will take notice of them and bestow upon them an incomparably precious gift to help them consolidate their realm. This gift contains infinite mysteries. It can purify the physical body, enhance aptitudes that have reached their limit, and improve one's ability to comprehend the Tao. Upon closer inspection, the scars on the girl's arms and face appear to have faded somewhat. He merely glanced at the cultivation manual once, and upon beginning his practice, he directly grasped its true essence. And in such a short time, he became recognized by heaven and earth as having the potential to become the strongest among his peers. You must understand, even in his previous life, he had only received 4 or 5 blessings from heaven when he reached the later stages of his cultivation. That is why Mu Yungui was so shocked. When Jiang Ryuchen opened her eyes, she was surprised to find her master staring at her, his eyes filled with barely suppressed excitement. "Master, how is my aptitude?" Jiang Ryuchen asked cautiously. Not bad, keep it up." Mu Yungui suppressed his excitement and decided to deceive Jiang Ryuchen for the time being. "If your master tells you that you are basically the strongest in your realm when you first start cultivating, wouldn't that be a bit too high profile?" Jiang Ryuchen felt a surge of joy upon receiving the affirmation. After all, she had initially worried that she wouldn't be able to understand those obscure and difficult cultivation manuals, but she hadn't expected them to be so simple. "I felt stronger, and my vision was much clearer." Chapter 8, The Master is Thinking of a Way to Kill Her. While Jiang Ryuchen continued to focus on her cultivation, Mu Yungui quietly pried open the spatial ring belonging to a golden core cultivator and couldn't help but gasp in amazement at the items inside. Weapon and spiritual treasure ranks: mortal yellow, profound earth, heaven, immortal Tao. Medicinal pills are ranked from 1 to 9, and their quality is classified as low, medium, high, and extremely high. There were hundreds of low-grade body-tempering medicinal herbs, dozens of yellow-grade talismans, and even a few black-grade thunder and sword talismans. There were also quite a few pills of grade 2 or above, several yellow-grade spiritual treasures of unknown function, and tens of thousands of spirit stones. Damn it, aren't sword cultivators supposed to be all broke? Upon seeing this scene, Mu Yungui couldn't help but complain. "Am I the only one who's poor?" Mu Yungui recalled that in his previous life, he had already reached the sword immortal realm, yet his low-level spatial rings were never full. The only valuable thing he possessed was the immortal sword in his hand, which he had refined himself as he progressed to the sword immortal realm. Why is this sword cultivator so rich? These materials alone are enough for an ordinary cultivator to reach the golden core stage. Just as he was about to finish taking inventory of all the items, Mu Yungui suddenly noticed 2 tokens in a secluded corner, each engraved with exquisite cloud patterns and exuding an extraordinary aura. After staring at them for a moment, the 2 tokens flew into his hands as if summoned. One is engraved with the 2 characters, "personally passed down," while the other has a single number engraved, 7. A dark sword, that's not surprising, that's not surprising. Mu Yungui squinted at it. The Dark Swords of the Tai Chuan Sword Sect are an organization exclusively under the command of the sect leader. Seeing this single number revealed the name of this unfortunate cultivator, or perhaps his code name, Sword 7. Even though this organization was not explicitly disclosed within the sect, Mu Yungui, as a holy son in his previous life, still knew about this secret. The 12 assassins, personally trained by Shen Lingxiao, were codenamed Sword 1 to Sword 12, and their cultivation levels ranged from the nascent soul stage to the golden core stage. Holding the two engraved tokens, Mu Yungui pondered silently. If that's the case, then maybe I can give Shen Qinghan a surprise when I leave Suzhou. The sky gradually darkened. Mu Yungui gripped the token engraved with the inscription, Inheritance, tightly in both hands, staring at it with his eyes fixed on it, his face turning deathly pale. Jiang Ruochen, who was standing to the side, couldn't help but feel puzzled upon seeing this. She couldn't help but ask, what is Master doing? Does he need Ruochen's help? Hearing Jiang Ruochen's voice, Mu Yungui finally came to his senses. Oh, it's nothing. Master is trying out a sword technique called sword storage. This method allows you to store sword energy within the sword, and then, at the cost of lowering your current cultivation level, gather this scattered sword energy together to form a powerful attack. Fearing the young girl might not understand, Mu Yungui paused slightly, explained using a common analogy, and then continued. For example, in the midst of a fight, one person throws their sword directly at the other. Although nothing is left after it's thrown, the other person might not be able to defend against that move. I suddenly had a brilliant idea. I wanted to try using this method to nurture sword energy within this token. If I succeeded, I might have a chance to kill that Shen Qinghan. Upon hearing this name, Jiang Ruochen's delicate body trembled, and a hint of sadness flashed in her beautiful eyes. But she quickly regained her composure, simply lowering her head as if trying to conceal the turmoil in her heart, because she clearly remembered that her master had told her that it was this person who planned that bloody night. Seeing Jiang Ruochen's reaction, Mu Yungui gently reached out and patted the girl's head, softly comforting her. Don't be afraid, watch Master find a way to kill her. Jiang Ruochen responded softly, her voice so soft that it seemed only she could hear it. However, the moment Mu Yungui's hand touched the top of her head, a strange yet familiar feeling welled up in her heart. Suddenly, a blurry image flashed into her mind. In the image, she had grown into an adult, her eyes filled with endless hatred and resentment, and she was hostile to everything around her. Immediately afterwards, a strong obsession surged in like a tidal wave, quickly taking over her entire mind. This obsession was so powerful that Jiang Ruochen could hardly resist it. She closed her eyes tightly and gritted her teeth, trying to fight against it, but the obsession grew stronger and stronger, as if it would completely devour her. Mu Yungui gently comforted the girl in front of him, but the girl kept her head down, as if something was wrong. Ruochen. Mu Yungui couldn't help but feel puzzled, and subconsciously lowered his head to check the situation. The girl's originally dark red eyes had somehow turned into a bewitching crimson, just like the ruthless and fearsome demon Empress of her past life. This eerie yet familiar scene made Mu Yungui's heart race, and he hurriedly and frantically pulled his hand back. Holy crap, Empress Jiang Ruochen. Unsure, let me take another look. As Mu Yungui withdrew his hand, the girl returned to her usual obedient demeanor. I guessed I was mistaken. Was I afraid of being beaten in my past life? Or was it a sense of guilt about encountering Jiang Ruochen from the past? Jiang Ruochen thought she had just been in a daze and didn't pay much attention to it. Then Master's realm. She pondered to herself, if it were truly as her master said, that the vessel could be transformed into this token, then her master would have to pay the price of losing all his cultivation level. Thinking of this, her brows furrowed slightly, and worry was evident on her face. However, Mu Yungui had already made plans. He waved his hand and calmly said, Cultivation, it's a piece of cake for me. This is part of the plan, rather than saying that he took this opportunity to conveniently dissipate all the realm he had gained after his rebirth. After all, although the Tai Xuan heart method he practiced in his previous life was incredibly powerful, possessing both offensive and defensive advantages, and its sword energy had a long history, its killing power was not quite enough. However, times have changed, and now, with its foundation exhausted, this mental cultivation method seems somewhat ineffective. It's not as good as that mental cultivation method that fits the current situation. Ultimate sword technique, a heavenly level cultivation technique. In my previous life, there were practically no cultivators who successfully cultivated this technique. The most important feature of this mental cultivation method is that it only demonstrates its effectiveness when one breaks through to a higher realm with unparalleled talent. He fused all the gifts from the heavenly Tao he received during his breakthrough into his 108 key acupoints, purifying and refining them to break free from his original constraints. After practicing this method, one will be virtually invincible at the same cultivation level. Although it sounds powerful, No one would be extremely confident in choosing this mental cultivation method. In reality, for most top-tier sword cultivators, it is already a great achievement and a worthwhile journey if they are fortunate enough to be blessed by the heavens and receive 2 opportunities from the heavenly Tao during their cultivation process. If they do not receive any gifts from the heavenly Tao during their breakthrough, this method is useless to them. However, since Mu Yungui has been reborn, he is determined to do his best and pursue the peak state of every realm before he will stop. As for being the strongest in the same realm, I am confident. Unlike Qi cultivators like Jiang Ruochen, there aren't many pure sword cultivators, so the competition for the great Tao isn't as fierce as that among Qi cultivators. Although sword cultivators are said to have the greatest killing power, many cultivators actually only use the sword as a secondary tool, and it is not a path unique to sword cultivators. Otherwise, standing next to Jiang Ruochen, would I have lost my mind to choose this path? As Mu Yungui began to use the Tai Xuan sword sex sword accumulating technique, the cultivation level within his body began to be completely transformed into sword energy, and his cultivation level began to slowly decline. Mu Yungui's face was somewhat pale. After all, his body had undergone tremendous changes in the past few days, and now, with another reckless act, his body was beginning to give out. Fortunately, the token had already begun to slowly flow into the sword energy. Mu Yungui's eyes lit up. It seemed like there was a chance. Immediately, the process of converting realm into sword energy was accelerated. It didn't take long for Mu Yungui's Qi refining stage cultivation to transform into sword Qi. Before long, all of his cultivation levels had dissipated, and the token contained roughly the power of his full force attack. Although I don't think I can kill Shen Qinghan, who has the peak of the foundation establishment stage, I still have to give it a try. After storing the token in his spatial ring, Mu Yungui examined his own body internally. Very good, a person without boundaries. The image of that ultimate sword manual flashed through his mind. With a thought, a barrier talisman appeared in Mu Yungui's hand, and as the talisman floated in the air, the entire courtyard was enveloped. Hundreds of spirit stones and medicinal herbs appeared before him. Mu Yungui in this life begins his formal cultivation. Chapter 9, Giving the Girl Some Time Alone. Ruochen, you and I will eventually embark on this path of no return, of revenge, and killing will be inevitable. The things Mu Yungui was carrying were roughly thrown into the yard by him. Kill him? Mu Yungui's eyes were as if he were looking at a dead object, devoid of any emotion. Jiang Ruochen will have to face this sooner or later, and as her master, he has a responsibility to make her face it all. But a complicated expression appeared in Jiang Ruochen's eyes, as if she could hardly accept the scene before her. No buts, Mu Yungui shook his head, interrupting the girl. You've been cultivating for over 10 days, and you've basically mastered the mental cultivation method and swordsmanship. Are you going to back down? Mu Yungui's words struck Jiang Ruochen's heart like a heavy hammer. All right, Jiang Ruochen seemed to have finally made up her mind. She gently waved the spatial ring in her hand, and a long sword instantly appeared in her hand. The longsword gleamed with a cold light, as if proclaiming its sharpness. Then, a streak of light flashed across the tip of the sword like a shooting star, followed by a scream, and the creature in front of it was decapitated. Blood gushed out like a fountain, splattering across the courtyard, creating a bizarre and bloody scene. The dripping sound was like a deathly symphony, sending chills down one's spine. It wasn't too gory. It's just that the female and male heads are separated. Master, we haven't finished eating the chicken from yesterday. After killing the chicken in front of her, Jiang Ruochen finally spoke her mind. These past few days, it seems like all I've done besides cultivate is eat, eat, eat. There's a kind of hunger that only your master can tell you. Remove the pot from the heat, boil water, and pluck the feathers. Mu Yungui skillfully processed the chicken that Jiang Ruochen had killed. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the chicken had been prepared. Only then did he leisurely answer the girl's question. This one is roasted. Compared to their first meeting, Jiang Ruochen's health had improved considerably, and she looked much more energetic. Although she still appeared somewhat thin, her eyes clearly had a brighter glow. More than 10 days had passed since the two went into seclusion for cultivation. Mu Yungui remembered that he still had things to do before leaving Sioux City, so he said to the girl, "Ruochen, shall we go out together?" Jiang Ruochen was taken aback for a moment before timidly asking, "Master, am I causing any trouble?" Mu Yungui shook his head and extended his hand to Jiang Ruochen. Seeing this, the girl had no choice but to take his hand. Holding the girl's soft little hand, the two finally walked out of the small courtyard after a long absence. Chicken Tail Street. More than 10 days after Long Tao and Lu Ren fled in a sorry state, the streets seemed to have become noisy again, with crowds bustling about. A boy and a girl walked down the street. After Jiang Ryuchen grasped Mu Yunggui's hand, those strange memories began to flood her mind again. In fragmented memories, the grown-up version of himself actually fought with his master. This is utterly outrageous. Jiang Ryuchen felt a little guilty. Was this what her master meant by going into demonic possession? So the girl deliberately stopped looking at these strange memories. However, although these strange memories arise every time she comes into contact with her master, and sometimes even affect the girl's emotions, it's not entirely a bad thing. For example, the girl's cultivation would be smoother after she viewed these memories. Chicken Tail Street. More than 10 days after Long Tao and Lu Ren fled in a sorry state, the streets seemed to have become lively again, with crowds thronging the streets and vendors shouting their wares. Yun Gui. The two passers-by were stopped by the woman from that day. Yun Gui, it's been several days. How are you? Those two didn't cause you any trouble, did they? The woman stood in front of the shop and asked worriedly. Seeing her like this, Mu Yungui waved his hand and said, Auntie, I'm fine. Those two haven't come here again since, have they? No, thanks to you, we got our money back from that day. That way they can have some peace and quiet for a while. The woman seemed to have something else to say, but she didn't continue. If you're going to do a good deed, you should definitely see it through to the end. Of course, the woman didn't say the last sentence aloud, since it was already the best solution. At least it brought her temporary peace. Mu Yungui understood what the woman was thinking. After all, he had come out this time to give an explanation and clean up the mess he had made here. If I were to take this seriously and think about it carefully, I'd realize that once those two thugs recovered from their injuries after I left, they would likely continue to bully and harm ordinary people. With that in mind, as the tyrant of Chicken Tail Street, I needed to find a way to eliminate them completely. She had only spoken halfway when the woman seemed to suddenly remember something. She hurriedly reached into her bosom, rummaged around, and pulled out a few loose silver coins, stuffing them into Mu Yunggui's hand. Yun Gui, here's some silver for you. Auntie, I came here this time only to find out where those two people live, not to collect protection money. Mu Yungui looked embarrassed and waved his hand awkwardly. Yun Gui, you must not act on impulse, the woman advised anxiously. Those two are indeed extremely despicable, but if you cause a murder case in the city, you will be in big trouble. You should know that even vicious criminals like them would never dare to take a life in the city so easily. Although she didn't know what kind of opportunity Mu Yungui had obtained to drive the two away, the woman tacitly refrained from asking any further questions. Instead, she patiently persuaded him, hoping that he could dispel some dangerous thoughts. Auntie, I never intended to kill anyone to cover it up. Mu Yungui struggled to explain to the woman that he had only gone to see those two people, because he had important matters to discuss. Persuade people with reason and virtue. The woman then told Mu Yungui the location of the two men, Shangcheng District. Mu Yungui led Jiang Ryuchen by the hand, strolling leisurely across the Su River to the upper district. However, at this moment, Jiang Ryuchen lowered her head as if she wanted to deliberately avoid something. Upon seeing this, Mu Yungui understood. The spatial ring in his hand shimmered with a mysterious light, and a talisman that concealed its aura appeared in his hand. Hide! As they softly chanted the incantation, the talisman instantly emitted a faint light, and then quietly floated in mid-air in front of the two of them, as if it were an invisible shield. The crowds around them were bustling and flowing, but they seemed to be under a spell, ignoring the two people who were right in front of them. The two quietly walked to the black ruins that had been cordoned off and stopped. People coming and going all seemed to be avoiding this ruin. Looking at the scene, Mu Yungui wanted to comfort the girl, but he didn't know what to say. Once he stood still, he abandoned his usual casual posture, bringing his hands together with 4 fingers interlaced like butterflies, forming a mudra. His eyes were slightly closed, and he murmured incantations. By imperial decree, your lonely soul is freed from suffering and reborn as a human. The sound was ethereal, echoing softly in the air. After completing the rebirth incantation, Mu Yungui quietly left, leaving Jiang Ryuchen alone in the same spot. Give Ryuchen some time to herself. Chapter 10, I was very lucky to meet my master. Taking advantage of Jiang Ryuchen's time alone, Mu Yungui did not remain idle. With swift steps, he arrived at the location designated by the woman in no time. Regarding what happened that day, the simplest solution would have been to kill those two people with a single sword strike. In that case, many problems would have been easily resolved. Unfortunately, too many people knew about it at the time, and his decision to leave in the next few days might attract the attention of Shen Qinghan and Shen Lingxiao. Besides, this approach was not in line with his usual style. Using love to influence others is the right choice. Is this the room? Mu Yungui looked at the room in front of him. It was ordinary and unremarkable. He stepped forward and gently knocked on the closed door. A moment later, a beautiful young woman, still charming and graceful, slowly peeked out from inside, her eyes revealing a hint of wariness. Ever since her helpless husband returned home with his broken body, he had hardly dared to leave the house, and the woman knew something must have happened. Although she didn't think it was a bad thing, after all, she knew that her husband was not a good person. Being beaten half to death was a way of ridding the people of a scourge. "Hello, what can I do for you?" The young woman was somewhat surprised to see a young man when she opened the door. "I've come to see the master. I have important matters to discuss," Mu Yungui said slowly, his tone firm. A hint of doubt flickered in the woman's eyes. "Whose child is this?" Just tell him that the boy with the brick came looking for him." Seeing that the other party seemed a little skeptical, Mu Yungui said helplessly. "All right." Could her husband's injury be related to this young man? Then the other party walked inside with some doubt. After a while, Long Tao, whose arm was wrapped in bandages, slowly came out. When he saw Mu Yungui outside the door, a look of fear flashed in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. "Wanner, you go back first. I have important matters to discuss with this young man." After saying this, he gently pushed the woman into the house and then closed the door. At this moment, only Mu Yungui and Long Tao remained, and the atmosphere instantly became heavy, as if the air itself had frozen. They both looked at each other, neither of them saying a word. "Brother, my wife was here just now, so it was inconvenient for me to perform the proper kowtow. Now, I will kowtow to you." Suddenly, Long Tao, filled with regret, disregarded the pain in his hands and knelt down before Mu Yungui, kowtowing repeatedly. The two men, caught up in the heat of the moment, didn't notice anything amiss when their arms were broken by a 15-year-old boy. But when they recounted the incident later, they were both filled with lingering fear and cold sweat. What level of skill is it for a teenager to nearly kill two martial artists in their 30s with a single punch? I don't even want to think about it. At that moment, the boy came looking for them, and the two of them finally felt relieved. "Call the other one over," Mu Yungui said coldly, his face ashen. Okay, please don't be angry. I'll go right away." Long Tao hurriedly replied, then rushed to a nearby residence and dragged Lu Ren out. So the person sweating profusely went from 1 to 2. "What, can't you stand it anymore?" A cold smile crept onto Mu Yungui's lips. He still preferred the two of them's unruly demeanor. There was no one around. Mu Yungui quickly formed a sword incantation in his hand, using spiritual power as a medium to create a temporary barrier that surrounded the two people and himself. The surrounding sounds were instantly reduced. The two were finally convinced that the young man before them was indeed a celestial master. He might just suddenly attack and kill them right now. At this point, they hurriedly knelt down, kowtowing repeatedly, and begged for mercy with tears streaming down their faces. "Immortal Master, we know we were wrong. Please have mercy and spare our lives. I have elderly parents to support and young children to raise. I have a beautiful, 30-year-old wife at home who's waiting for me to support her." It seems like something strange has been mixed in. The cries of the two rose and fell. Upon hearing this, Mu Yungui remained silent, while the two could only humbly prostrate themselves on the ground, silently praying that the young man before them would show mercy and spare their lives. "If we let you go like this, you'll surely continue to commit crimes after you recover. Generally speaking, killing you is more convenient." Mu Yungui said calmly, "It's just a pity. Alas, I was too kind." Upon hearing Mu Yungui's words, a glimmer of hope rekindled in the eyes of the two men. They looked up at him, awaiting his judgment. However, the death penalty may be waived, but punishment is inevitable. With that, a long sword appeared in Mu Yungui's hand, and with a casual swing, the little fingers of the two men were severed. The two men gritted their teeth, not daring to utter a sound. Then, Mu Yungui, wielding a long sword, used the tip of his sword to make a small incision on their foreheads with exquisite skill, pouring in a wisp of sword energy. Feeling the eerie aura in their minds, the two couldn't help but swallow hard. "Do you know what a watermelon looks like when it bursts open?" Mu Yungui gave a vivid description, and the two people in front of him turned even paler. "HMPH, this is my punishment for you. I call it repent and start anew as a human goo. As the name suggests, only by repenting, starting anew, and doing good deeds can it be prevented from flaring up. If you still dare to bully the weak and oppress the people, HMPH, you'll have to start over. You wouldn't want your beautiful wife to be a widow, would you? Mu Yungui threatened the two people in front of him. Did you understand? Upon hearing this, the two hurriedly nodded, fearing that the young man would change his mind. They cut their own necks with a sword, then knelt down and kowtowed heavily. Thank you, Immortal, for sparing my life. But when they looked up again, Mu Yungui had already vanished without a trace. So, when Mu Yungui rushed back to Jiang Ryuachen's side, the young girl was already waiting for him. Master Tilda. The girl gently wiped away the crystal-clear tears from her slightly reddened eyes, trying her best to appear stronger. Mu Yungui tenderly ruffled the girl's hair, momentarily at a loss for how to comfort her. Jiang Ryuachen looked up at him, a resolute yet heartbreaking smile blooming on her face. I told my mother and father that I am living a good life now, and that I have found a very gentle master who will teach me magical arts. I have always listened carefully to my mother's advice to live on. In that case, if they have spirits in heaven, wouldn't they think that Ryuachen was living her life earnestly? Yes, I will, Mu Yungui replied softly, her eyes filled with tenderness. The girl looked up at Mu Yungui and unusually reached out her hand, which trembled slightly, but she still held it tightly. Master, you can go back now. Afterwards, the boy and girl left the place hand in hand. The streets were still bustling with people, and shouts and calls filled the air. Mu Yungui looked at the man selling candied hawthorns on the street, stepped forward and bought 2 skewers. The two of them strolled along the street, each holding a candied hawthorn. Ryuachen, your master has a story. Would you be interested in hearing it? Mu Yungui took a big bite of the candied hawthorn, and without waiting for the girl's response, simply said to herself in a low voice, Once I met someone who had a similar experience to yours. She was all alone, carrying a deep-seated hatred and living a difficult life. Those who deeply loved her were also cruelly turned away by her. But this is inextricably linked to the villains who persecuted her. Finally, after completing her revenge, the last vestige of her will to live vanished, and she committed suicide. I think it's a bit of a pity. Although I cannot control your thoughts, your master still wants to tell you not to let revenge become your only obsession. Of course, hatred can give you strength, but in this long life you should not be filled with hatred alone. You can feel love and enjoy being loved. Your master doesn't want to see you become like the person I once met. You know, when your mother said, live well, the word well is just as important. Mu Yungui looked tenderly at the girl beside him, pondering to himself whether his earnest advice was appropriate, since he couldn't fully understand Ryuachen's feelings. All he could do was carefully guide Ryuachen's cultivation and accompany her on her path of revenge. Jiang Ryuachen parted her cherry lips slightly, her pearly teeth gently biting the sugar coating of the candied hawthorn. She pursed her lips, then looked up, forcing a smile, and gazed at Mu Yungui. For some reason, Ryuachen felt a little sad when she heard her master talking about that person. However, Ryuachen isn't like her. I was very lucky to meet my master Tilda. Yes, it's true. I've had this wonderful encounter with Jiang Ryuachen in this lifetime. Chapter 11. I have time, but I also lack time. The next day, Mu Yungui woke up leisurely in the soft light of dawn, just as he always did. The girl beside him was still curled up asleep, with a tear in the corner of her eye. He wondered if she was having some nightmares. Perhaps because of her turbulent past, the girl was a light sleeper. Whenever Mu Yungui made the slightest noise when he got up, it would startle her, so she had to hide her presence and get up slowly. However, since embarking on the path of cultivation, she has devoted herself to training every day. After reaching her limit, the girl would fall into a deep sleep, and this condition has improved slightly. After Mu Yungui quietly got up, he didn't wake Jiang Ryuachen. After all, this was the last night at home, so he let the girl wake up naturally. Taking advantage of the beautiful morning light, Mu Yungui began exercising in the courtyard. 5th level of Qi refining. Mu Yungui looked inward, sensing his own cultivation level. The moment he successfully broke through to the next realm, he unsurprisingly received a blessing from heaven and earth. After successfully drawing Qi into his body and entering the Qi refining stage, he used the gift of heaven to integrate it into 3 acupoints. Relying on his own cultivation of the extreme sword heart technique, although his foundation could not be completely replenished in an instant, his aura at this moment was indeed much stronger than before. Thinking back to this time in my previous life, the immortal ascension realm was about to be unveiled. I realized that my cultivation level was still somewhat insufficient. The two had almost used up all the spiritual herbs and medicinal materials in their spatial rings. Although they still had 10,000 spirit stones left, there was no Tianbao pavilion here, so they couldn't buy the materials they needed for body tempering, making it somewhat of a waste. We absolutely must obtain the heavenly essence liquid. As Mu Yungui trained, he pondered his future plans. He muttered to himself, recalling how Shen Qinghan had obtained this treasure in the secret realm in his previous life. Heavenly essence liquid, a supreme treasure that takes at least 100 years to be born from the operation of a complete small world, and it happens to exist in the soon-to-be-born immortal Ascension's secret realm. Obtaining this item would bring me enormous benefits. In his previous life, Shen Qinghan successfully broke through from the Foundation Establishment stage to the strongest 9th grade Golden Core stage with the help of Heavenly Essence Liquid. The highest grade Golden Core stage is invincible within the same realm. In a one-on-one battle, a 9th grade Golden Core cultivator would be far more lethal than a lower grade Golden Core cultivator. At this moment, Mu Yungui was in dire need of improving his strength, and this Heavenly Essence Liquid was undoubtedly a godsend for him. A mansion at that. If I could obtain this Heavenly Essence Liquid, I might be able to restore my Qi, and wouldn't breaking through to the Foundation Establishment stage be a natural gift from heaven. Perhaps the scars on Ryuachen's face wouldn't have to wait until her cultivation level improved before they gradually faded away. It seems I absolutely have to get involved in Shen Qinghan's unexpected opportunity. After a moment's thought, Mu Yungui made up his mind. Even if we can't get it, we can't let Shen Qinghan get it. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. In his previous life, Shen Qinghan ascended to the top of the 5 continents prodigy, ranking a year later with his unparalleled talent of a 9th grade golden elixir, holy eyes, and holy heart. This made everyone in the cultivation world aware that there was a prodigy in the eastern continent with such extraordinary abilities. They are in no way inferior to the geniuses of the central continent, and even surpass those so-called peerless sects' holy sons and daughters. If the other party were to once again enter the 5 continents prodigies ranking with such unparalleled talent, becoming known to everyone, revenge might become more difficult. Fortunately, at this time, the Tai Chuan sword sect was only a second-rate sect in the eastern continent, and she was only a saintess of a second-rate sect. I have time, but I also lack time. In midair, a celestial ship over 10 meters long sped past, piercing through the clouds. From above, the people in the city below looked like ants, rapidly receding from view. A girl of about 15 or 16 years old, dressed in a white dress with exquisite patterns embroidered in gold thread along the hem, and with a slender, snow-white sword at her waist, highlighting her nobility. The girl had a beautiful face, as stunning as an immortal, flawless, with golden eyes that shone like jewels. She opened them slightly and gazed quietly at the scenery below. However, the tens of thousands of people below seemed no different from ants to her, which annoyed her. If it weren't for the necessity of secretly arranging for the girl with the same constitution as himself to fall into the demonic path, transforming her into a holy demon heart, so that he could then possess her body, Shen Qinghan would never have come to such a place with sparse spiritual energy and remoteness. At this moment, 2 figures dressed in fitted white robes slowly approached the girl from behind. A man and a woman. The man appeared to be about 25 or 26 years old, tall, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and carrying an exquisite longsword on his back. The woman covered her eyes with a black silk cloth, making it difficult to see her expression, but judging from her other features, she was undoubtedly a stunning beauty. At this moment, the girl with her face covered by black silk parted her cherry lips slightly, and a melodious voice echoed in Shen Qinghan's heart. "Your Holiness, those 2 people inside. The woman is from the enforcement hall. Will this affect the plan?" Shen Qinghan turned to look inside the immortal boat, where there were 2 cultivators dressed in sword sect attire, a man and a woman. The male cultivator looked to be around 23 or 24 years old. Shen Qinghan's eyes met those of the slightly older man, who was staring at her intently. Shen Qinghan felt a little nauseous. Although I am a saintess, those people in the enforcement hall don't care about that. Just play it by ear and don't give her any leverage. Shen Qinghan's answer echoed in the girl's mind, and then she turned away and said nothing more. At that moment, a small talisman sword flew back through the air, and like a bolt of lightning, pierced the middle of the tall man's forehead. "Holy Maiden, we can't contact Giant Qi." The tall man sensed the message from the flying sword, and also reported the information he had received in his mind. "Don't be nervous, we'll be there soon." Shen Qinghan frowned slightly, though she herself felt a little uneasy. Since embarking on the path of cultivation, she had never encountered any accidents, and everything had gone smoothly. However, this time, the message Jian Jiu sent back made her feel unusually irritable. The feeling of things being out of my control. Well, that's not a good feeling. However, Shen Qinghan did not believe that there would be any existence in that tiny place that could threaten a golden core, stage sword cultivator. Moreover, Dark Sword would never betray you. With her thoughts in turmoil, Shen Qinghan simply stopped thinking about it, figuring that she would know everything when the time came. On the immortal boat, the male cultivator inside stared at Shen Qinghan at the bow of the boat, suddenly stunned and couldn't help but sigh. "Junior sister Shen is so beautiful." "Right, junior sister Jiang. Do you think if I put a coat on junior sister Shen now, she might develop even the slightest bit of a crush on me?" The girl inside looked to be only 15 or 16 years old, with a charming and lovely appearance, like a flower bud about to bloom. Her fair and delicate cheeks were as smooth as mutton-fat jade, and her large, watery eyes were clear and bright. Her hair was cleverly tied into two small, round buns, standing neatly on both sides of her head, like two cute little rabbit ears. The young girl stood in stark contrast to Shen Qinghan's aloof and icy beauty on the deck of the ferry boat. Jiang Yao took a small bite of the spiritual fruit in her hand with her cherry-like lips, and casually remarked with a sharp tongue, "Yes, yes, but senior brother dude, don't even think about it. The holy maiden doesn't fancy you." Jiang Yao looked out the window, recalling the 4 words her master had given her. "Observe the holy maiden." Jiang Yao was having a terrible headache over this ambiguous task. I had just returned from a mission a few days ago, and hadn't even figured out what was going on when my master threw me onto the celestial ship. I haven't been a member of the Sword Sect's enforcement hall for very long, and now I have to carry out such a strange mission. Besides, it's already strange that the holy maiden of the Sword Sect would come to such a place with sparse spiritual energy to accept disciples, right? I really don't know what that unreliable master meant by giving those 4 words. Thinking of her master, whose looks and figure were both top-notch, yet whose personality was so carefree, Jiang Yao couldn't help but rub her temples. Now I have another love-struck simp by my side. How do I even begin this mission? Oh well, let's just take it one step at a time. Jiang Yao decided to give up. About an hour later, the ferry boat, like a pure white auspicious cloud, drifted in and stopped in the sky above Suzhou. Some people in the city caught a glimpse of this strange sight and were astonished. A celestial being has graced Suzhou with his presence. There really are immortals. I wonder what brings this immortal to the mortal realm. The crowd below whispered amongst themselves, creating a commotion. Some were afraid, some were curious, and some even knelt down and began to pray devoutly. Shen Qinghan looked down at the mortals at his feet, expressionless, as if he were untouched by worldly affairs. She descended slowly from the sky, her steps light and graceful, as if she were walking on a transparent ladder of clouds. To the onlookers, this scene was like a blessing from heaven. What a beautiful and ethereal fairy. After seeing the immortal's appearance, all those so-called courtesans paled in comparison. The phrase, "a celestial maiden descending to earth," is no longer just an adjective. Shen Qinghan watched the worship of the crowd indifferently from mid-air. Then, her eyes widened, and a hint of holiness flashed across her dazzling golden pupils. As Shen Qinghan opened his eyes, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared in the sky above Sioux City. A gigantic golden eye materialized, like a god descending, looking down upon everyone from its lofty position. A powerful sense of oppression swept through every corner of the city like a whirlwind. At this moment, Jian Jiu, standing tall beside Shen Qinghan, spoke with a booming voice that resounded in every corner of the city. "Today, the holy maiden of the Tai Xuan Sword Sect has descended to the mortal realm to seek out talents with the aptitude for cultivation. You need not be nervous." Chapter 12, No music to be heard in the brothel. The giant golden eye, like the sun shining in the sky, looked down upon the people in the city, but it did not last long. In just a few breaths, it dissipated like flowing gold, turning into golden dust and drifting away. As Shen Qinghan witnessed all of this, she slowly closed her eyes to recover her spiritual power. With his peak foundation establishment cultivation, using it even once was already a struggle, but this was the first time he had used the eye technique completely since cultivating the holy eye. Fortunately, he detected the aura of Jian Qi. However, he did not see the girl he had glamorously disguised for easier observation. Shen Qinghan was very satisfied with her skills at the time, She couldn't have accepted it if the girl's appearance was comparable to her own. It should have been easy to spot, but apart from a wisp of aura, neither the girl, Xiao Dai, nor Jian Qi saw anything. Shen Qinghan was inexplicably anxious. Jian Qi had sent back a message not long ago, and she wondered what had happened here in the past few days. Shen Qinghan wished he could ignore all sect recruitment and head straight there. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a girl with her hair in a bun looking around curiously. Unfortunately, I can't get away right now. Junior sister Shen's holy eyes are truly terrifying. Her foundation establishment cultivation is already so powerful. Du Wen took the opportunity to flatter Shen Qinghan from her side. I have only done my best. Senior brother Du is too kind. Shen Qinghan composed himself and said softly, "Just now, I observed that there are still a few people in the city with the aptitude for cultivation, who can reach the level of outer disciples, about a dozen or so. I might need to trouble my senior brother again when we test my qualifications later." "No problem, leave it to me." Du Wen readily agreed when Shen Qinghan asked him for help. The crowd below looked up at the immortal in mid-air. After witnessing such divine skill, they all fell silent, filled with awe. Jiang Yao, standing to the side, silently memorized Shen Qinghan's actions. "You're going to use it for this after you unlock the holy eye." Jiang Yao thought to herself, "It feels strange, but I can't quite put my finger on what's wrong." Immediately afterwards, the girl beside Jian Jiu, whose eyes were covered by black silk, waved her jade hand lightly, and an ancient and exquisite longsword instantly appeared in her hand. The girl plunged the longsword downwards, and it easily penetrated the stone slab as if it were tofu. The ancient sword stood firmly before the crowd. The people around hurriedly scattered, making way for an open space. The young girl parted her lips slightly, and her exquisitely beautiful voice, like heavenly music, rang in everyone's ears. "Our sect recruits disciples under the age of 16. If you wish to seek immortality and the Tao, you can place your hand on this sword. If the sword trembles, you are considered qualified and will have the opportunity to join our Tai Xuan sword sect." After a short while, a bolder teenager stepped out from the crowd and cautiously placed his hand on it. Not able to sense the spirit sword, unqualified. Although the girl's eyes were covered by black silk, it seemed to have no effect on her eyesight. She simply spoke calmly. Afterwards, Shen Qinghan and the others began selecting disciples on this spot. Although the arrival of the immortals seemed to freeze all the shops in Suzhou, some places remained unaffected, such as the brothel called Jiaoyanlu. Compared to those proper places to listen to music, this Jiaoyanlu seems a bit unrefined. Upon entering, one is immediately greeted by a strong scent of rouge, followed by a group of young women dressed in thin, revealing clothing. However, it might not be accurate to conclude that it's immoral based solely on this. While the girls here may use their looks to entertain, they don't sell their bodies, they only flaunt their talents. I hate places that pretend to be serious, but are actually not. Upon reaching the top floor of Jiaoyan Tower, the top courtesan was dressed in a bright red gauze dress. Her alluring figure was partially obscured by the gauze, sparking endless imagination. However, at this moment she sat alone at the doorway, playing the gyukin while looking heartbroken. If an ordinary person were to see her in this state, they would surely feel pity for her. "That young master is truly handsome. It's just a pity that he doesn't seem to like me at all," the girl muttered to herself as she played the zither. Recalling the young man who had just arrived, he boldly waved his sleeve and pulled out 2 gold leaves, designating his room before kicking him out. Then she thought of the girl holding the boy's hand. Although her features might be considered stunningly beautiful, her scars and the deep red marks that stretched from her neck to her face were so terrifying. Could she really be more beautiful than herself? The young man's generosity piqued her curiosity. They had been inside for some time, but there was no sound. Unable to contain her curiosity, the girl cautiously approached to listen for any sounds from within. "Yuan Jai." Yuan Jai was startled by the familiar voice. Looking in the direction of the sound, she saw an old woman, who looked to be about 50 or 60 years old, slowly walking up from downstairs and interrupting the girl's actions. Her voice was slightly aged and stern, as if it had been mellowed by the passage of time. "Just follow the guest's requests. Have you forgotten the most important rule of our Jiaoyanlu? Don't be curious about the guest's identity." Looking out through the window of Yuan Jai's room, the people in the city were gradually converging towards the direction where Shen Qinghan and the other immortals were. Like a tide, the prosperous scene of the city could be seen from this window. Inside the room were Mu Yunggui and Jiang Ruochen, who had already packed their bags and were preparing to leave Suzhou. At this moment, Mu Yungui leaned leisurely against the window, glancing sideways at the noisy scene below. Jiang Ruochen felt a strange fear of the so-called Shen Qinghan. When those holy eyes appeared in mid-air, her palms broke out in a cold sweat, and she dared not look out the window. Two hidden swordsmen, Jiang Yao and Du Wen. Mu Yungui narrowed his eyes, staring at the four cultivators from afar, muttering to himself. Two golden core cultivators, three foundation establishment cultivators. No, Shen Qinghan is now comparable to golden core cultivators. These individuals are all worthy of the resources of a small sect. Everything was exactly as he had predicted, without the slightest error, as if it were a replay of his past life. His gaze fell on the cute girl who was still eating, and a long-lost feeling of nostalgia welled up in his heart. Jiang Yao was his little fangirl in his past life, and the girl's master was also someone Mu Yungui knew. Recalling the past, he couldn't help but feel a headache coming on, because not everyone in the Tai Chuan sword sect was as hypocritical and ugly as the Shen family father and daughter. At least the members of the enforcement hall still upheld the principles of upholding justice with their swords and carried the sword of righteousness in their hearts. Unfortunately, after reaching the tribulation transcending stage, he was almost completely corrupted. He only hoped that the killing formation he had set up would not be triggered by Jiang Yao. As for Du Wen, Mu Yungui simply chose to ignore him. In her past life, Shen Qinghan had an ultimate simp, Du Wen. Having cultivated a technique that can rapidly elevate one's cultivation level, one can quickly enter the golden core stage. But after reaching the nascent soul stage, one's cultivation will become as if one's neck has been severed, making it difficult to make any further progress. All of this was done simply to keep up with Shen Qinghan and attract her attention. Fortunately, he no longer needs to worry about what will happen next. In his previous life, in the Immortal Ascension secret realm, in order to show off in front of Shen Qinghan, he accidentally triggered the secret realm's mechanism and lost his life. However, this was only something Mu Yungui had heard. At that time, he had just embarked on the path of cultivation and did not have the opportunity to enter that secret realm. Based on what Shen Qinghan said, he was now somewhat skeptical of the truth. The girl with the black silk covering her face must be Giant 12. It seems she also perished in that mysterious Immortal Ascension realm. In his previous life, Mu Yungui hadn't paid much attention to her, but now, looking at her, he couldn't help but feel a profound sense of meaning. That face felt strangely familiar to him, yet it was like a flower in the mist, elusive and hard to grasp. Looking into those eyes covered by black silk, a crazy conjecture surged into Mu Yungui's mind. Shen Qinghan, would you really go this far? Mu Yungui murmured to himself. Just as Mu Yungui was racking his brains for information about the girl, Jiang Ruochen turned her gaze to the window and said coldly, Master, I've seen that longsword before. You mean the sword at Shen Qinghan's waist? That is indeed a very high-grade sword named Frost and Snow. Mu Yungui's gaze remained fixed on the five people as he casually replied. However, Jiang Ruochen remained silent. Ruochen? Mu Yungui noticed something was wrong and turned to look at her. Instantly, the temperature inside the room plummeted, and a wave of demonic energy rushed towards him like a surging cold tide. Before he could react, a tiny cut appeared on his face. Chapter 13. The heart of gods and demons can be changed in a single thought. Endless evil thoughts surged into Jiang Ruochen's mind like a surging tide. Fear, loneliness, solitude, hatred, anger, resentment. All sorts of negative emotions seemed to have found a breakthrough. After seeing the long sword hanging at Shen Qinghan's waist, they rushed into Jiang Ruochen's brain like a swarm of bees. The sacred and luminous aura of cultivation vanished instantly, replaced by a sinister and eerie black mist surrounding him. Ruochen? Mu Yungui finally came to his senses and hurriedly called out to try to wake Jiang Ruochen from her loss of control. However, at this moment, Jiang Ruochen's eyes turned scarlet and eerie again, and a drop of bright red blood even seeped from the corner of her eye. Damn it, could it be that Shen Qinghan used that sword to slaughter Ruochen's entire family? Mu Yungui's eyes were grave. It must have been that sword that awakened Ruochen's memories of that bloody night. Mu Yungui was all too familiar with that ominous black mist. It was the terrifying aura emanating from Jiang Ruochen's demonic heart after she fell into the demonic path in her previous life. The cultivation method given to the girl in this life was clearly a divine cultivation method containing the power of holy light. So how could it have turned into the demonic path? Mu Yungui could only blame it on his heart, which relied on mental state for cultivation. Truly, a single thought can transform a god into a demon. He only wanted to stay in Suzhou to see if the formation he had set up could harm Shen Qinghan, but he completely failed to notice Ryuachen's condition. If Mu Yungui had known it would turn out this way, he would have left with the girl long ago. He wouldn't have stayed to watch the spectacle. Now look what's happened. He's about to become part of the spectacle himself. The concealment array set up in this room is not actually very powerful. If Ryuachen continues to release her aura like this, the array will surely collapse. If the formation breaks, and Shen Qinghan notices the anomaly here and discovers Ryuachen, Mu Yungui had not anticipated what would happen next, and at this moment he had no time to consider these issues. Ryuachen, wake up. However, at that moment, an extremely ominous and sharp, knife-like terrifying aura suddenly swept over, slicing straight across Mu Yungui's arm and instantly leaving a deep gash. Fresh blood gushed out, staining his sleeves red. Mu Yungui winced in pain, but his hands did not stop. He brought his two fingers together, and the space ring on his hand lit up, instantly revealing a pale green talisman between his fingers. A talisman for calming the mind. Holding the talisman in his hand, he attacked against the black mist, and a gentle breeze instantly dispersed the attack. However, the breeze only lasted a short, while before it was mercilessly swallowed up by the black mist. Only then did Mu Yungui realize that the low-level talismans could no longer suppress Jiang Ryuachen. Now he could only rely on his physical body to block this evil thought from destroying the concealment formation. Immediately afterwards, Mu Yungui stretched out his arms and hugged the girl's delicate body tightly, using his own body to shield the magic array from the damage brought by the surging black mist around him, and continuously channeling pure and powerful true essence into the girl's body. The two were very close, with no gap between them. Mu Yungui prepared to use himself as a medium to receive the evil thoughts, thereby slowing down the spread of Jiang Ryuachen's malice. At this moment, Mu Yungui could clearly feel that the other party's Holy Spirit heart was surrounded by endless dark fog. These hateful thoughts, like a leech, surged back along the true essence transmitted by Mu Yungui, flooding his body like a tidal wave. Even with his cultivation as a sword immortal from a previous life, Mu Yungui staggered suddenly, and large beads of cold sweat instantly appeared on his face. I never imagined this malevolent intent would be so powerful. Mu Yungui tried his best to maintain his mental clarity. Only after truly empathizing with the girl did I realize how superficial and naive my previous understanding of the hatred deep in her heart had been. At this moment, waking the other person had become the top priority. Mu Yungui murmured, "Qingming Jiu," a traditional Chinese expression for the Qingming festival. As he whispered this, a wisp of faint blue mist slowly appeared in his palm. He stretched out his palm and gently stroked the back of the other's head, letting the mist flow through him like a clear spring flowing across parched land, quickly penetrating the girl's mind. Under the influence of this magical power, the girl's blood-red eyes trembled slightly, as if she were showing signs of awakening. Mu Yungui also felt the black mist in the girl's heart instantly dissipate and transform into the Holy Spirit heart. As if in a daze for a moment, Jiang Ryuachen's crimson pupils gradually dimmed. Then she felt a familiar aura envelop her like a tide, a feeling of unparalleled peace. When she came to her senses, she was surprised to find that Mu Yungui was holding her tightly, silent. "Master, what just happened?" Jiang Ryuachen tried hard to recall. She remembered that at the moment her memory broke down, she was staring at Shen Qinghan in the distance, very angry. Then, when she came to her senses, she was hugged by Mu Yungui. "What's wrong, master?" "My good disciple." Seeing that Ryuachen had regained consciousness, Mu Yungui breathed a sigh of relief. He slowly released his embrace of the girl, and the imprisoning sword formation that was about to take shape in his hand dissipated like smoke. If Jiang Ryuachen doesn't regain her senses, he'll probably have to use a sword formation to trap her. Jiang Ryuachen felt a little pain from Mu Yungui's hug, but her face turned red. After a moment, once she had calmed down, the girl slowly raised her head to look at Mu Yungui. At this moment, Mu Yungui was frantically searching for healing pills in his spatial ring. "Master, your face? What just happened?" A conspicuous wound was visible on Mu Yungui's face, and his sleeve was soaked with blood. "It's all right. A fierce-looking female demon suddenly appeared and scratched me, but it's nothing serious." Mu Yungui found a bottle of healing medicine in his spatial ring, and then swallowed a few pills whole. "I only wanted to watch the show, but I ended up getting completely absorbed in it." He could never admit that he was injured by his own disciple, and that he almost couldn't control him, so he could only make up a reason to appease the girl. Master, it's only been a short while. Don't lie to Ryuachin. I accidentally did it myself. Jiang Ryuachin stared at the striking scars on Mu Yunggui's face, not quite believing his story. Suddenly, a ray of vibrant light appeared in her hand. The girl tiptoed and gently smeared the light onto the other person's face. Master is not like Ryuachin, who has to take good care of her face. Under Jiang Ryuachin's gentle touch, the wound that would have taken a while to heal was already healing rapidly. The healing power of the Holy Spirit is truly powerful. Looking down through the window, the Tai Xuan Sword sect members made their move. Du Wen, who was originally monotonously maintaining order at the scene, suddenly had a captivating thought echo in his mind. Senior brother, things are getting a bit boring right now. Junior sister would like to stroll around the streets of this mortal realm. Could you briefly oversee things here with junior sister Jiang Yao? Du Wen, who was originally dull and boring, suddenly became interested when Shen Qinghen took the initiative to talk to him. Immediately, Du Wen's eyes lit up, and he responded in kind with his own thoughts. Junior sister Shen, would you like me to show you around? I'm quite familiar with the mortal realm, and besides. Before Du Wen could finish speaking, Shen Qinghen turned around and interrupted him, a hint of struggle appearing on her beautiful face. Actually, Qinghen just wanted to buy some ordinary food, so there's no need to trouble you, senior brother. How about I buy some for you later? After a moment of hesitation, Shen Qinghen forced a faint smile despite her nausea. Seeing this, Du Wenchen's heart fluttered, and he quickly assured her. All right, junior sister Shen, don't worry. Junior sister Jiang Yao and I will definitely maintain order. Jiang Yao looked puzzled upon hearing this. Before she could react, she saw Shen Qinghen leading Jian Jiu and Jian Shir to leave the area. Hey, senior sister Qinghen, where are you going? Take Yeaya with you. Jiang Yao quickly interrupted the three of them and said anxiously. Du Wen then pulled Jiang Yao aside and explained. Junior sister Shen wants to buy some food from the mortal realm. Junior sister, Jiang Yao, you and I will maintain order first. Hey, Jiang Yao wanted to retort, but the three of them had already walked further and further away. There was a minor hiccup, but fortunately it didn't cause any problems for Mu Yunggui's plan. At this moment, he saw that Shen Qinghen had already walked towards the direction where the killing formation was set up, just as he had expected. Master, did Ryuachin accidentally hurt you just now? Jiang Ryuachin came back to her senses, still troubled by what had just happened, her face full of guilt. Mu Yungui rubbed his temples, looking quite troubled, and said, Master said that I did it by accident. Real? Ryuachin, look. Shen Qinghen is walking towards the place where I carefully set up the killing formation. Did Master really do it by accident? Ryuachin, you'll see. Even if we can't kill Shen Qinghen, we'll definitely manage to injure her. Did Master really do it by accident? Chapter 14, The Wound That Extends from the Neck to the Face. The backstreet where Mu Yungui and Jian Qi fought was already sparsely populated, and because of the once-in-a-millennium event of an immortal taking on a disciple in the city, no one came here anymore. However, at this moment, the fairy Shen Qinghen, dressed in a white dress, arrived at the street corner with two dark swordsmen. The aura of Sword 7 is emanating from here. Shen Qinghen's golden eyes lit up as he looked at the empty, somewhat eerie street and spoke slowly. With the holy eye activated, the illusion talisman became ineffective in front of the three. A deception, a trivial trick. Jian Jiu snorted coldly, casually waving his right hand. A powerful surge of spiritual energy, typical of a golden core stage sword cultivator, burst forth from his sleeve and swept across the street. At this moment, the street had changed. A long sword was inserted into the wall, about the height of a person, with a token nailed to the tip. A damaged talisman, which was originally stuck to the hilt, was scattered to the ground by the spiritual power summoned by Jian Jiu. Scattered on the surrounding walls were a few sword talismans aimed at the crowd. One of them was triggered by the aura, and a white sword light shot towards Jian Jiu. With a wave of his hand, Jian Jiu grasped the sword light directly in his hand. Then, with a strong squeeze, the sword energy dissipated into white starlight and vanished. How could such a hasty formation exist? At this moment, the killing formation formed by the talismans was broken like a candle flickering in the wind, and the sword talismans couldn't even harm Jian Jiu. Sword 7's sword and sect token, the token symbolizing Jian Qi's identity as a member of the Tai Xuan sword sect, and the sword that a sword cultivator cherishes as if it were his life, were placed here in a somewhat hasty manner. Sword 7 is either dead or has defected, Shen Qinghen speculated. Seeing this, even if they didn't want to admit it, there was nothing they could do. Things had indeed gotten out of Shen Lingxiao's and her control. Are you kidding me? Someone with such rudimentary skills could kill Jian Qi. Upon seeing such a hastily arranged rune array, Jian Jiu's tall frame trembled, either due to the provocation or anger of the person who set it up. With such low-level talismans, I don't think the other party has any qualifications to kill Jian Qi. Although they were both loyal followers of the sect leader, Anjian was not without feelings. Upon seeing this scene, Jian Jiu couldn't control his emotions and retorted to Shen Qinghen. "So you're saying that Jian Qi took pity on me and defected with my heart?" Shen Qinghen suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice. But Jian Jiu wanted to explain something, but realizing her emotions were unstable, she quickly said to Shen Qinghen, "I'm sorry, holy maiden, I just now. We can only check what kind of aura is left on the sword," Shen Qinghen said, then gestured to Jian Jiu. "Be careful, the opponent may have other tricks up their sleeve." Upon hearing this, Jian Jiu activated the sword energy of the golden core stage within his body, constructing a defense in his hand before reaching out to pull out the sword hilt. A sound like a sword slicing through stone rang out, and the sword was pulled out without causing any further commotion. The three men relaxed their guard. The token, having lost its support, fell to Jian Jiu's feet with a clanging sound like a metal plate hitting the ground. Jian Jiu instinctively bent down to pick it up. While the three of them were not paying much attention, the token emitted a dazzling white light before Jian Jiu could even touch it. Then a powerful sword aura, carrying supreme sword intent, burst forth. Caught off guard by this change, Jian Jiu could only muster all his strength to mobilize his entire body's defenses. At this moment, the girl Jian 12, whose perception was extraordinary, was the first to sense that something was wrong. She immediately tried to turn around and stand in front of Shen Qinghen, but unfortunately it was too fast. Before she could reach Shen Qinghen, the token had already changed. The token, resembling a white flower, grew towards the three of them, except that its petals were composed of countless translucent white sword energies. In that instant, the exquisite white flower expanded to 5 or 6 meters in size, and the sword energy transformed into petals, piercing towards the three people who had no time to react. Bang! Jian Jiu, who was closest, was instantly riddled with thorns, coughing up blood. Jian 12 only managed to block a small portion of the sword blossoms that were heading towards Shen Qinghen, while the longest sword blossom shot towards Shen Qinghen. Sacred Eye, extreme pressure. There was no time to draw his sword. Shen Qinghen could only tilt his head back and open his beautiful holy eyes to slow the spread of the sword flowers. The strongest sword petal seemed to have been aimed directly at Shen Qinghen, heading straight for her head. Although its speed had slowed down somewhat, it still hurtled towards her head. A sound of flesh being sliced through flesh rang out, and blood spread. The sword flower shot out and crashed into the wall behind the three people, after which the wall collapsed with a roar. However, the attack did not penetrate Shen Qinghen's head. It merely grazed her neck at a very tricky angle, slicing across her fair and beautiful face, leaving her covered in blood. "Your Holiness, your subordinate apologizes." Upon witnessing this scene, Jian 12 and Jian 9 were terrified. Ignoring their own injuries, they quickly got up to protect Shen Qinghen. Shen Qinghen tried to heal his wounds by circulating his spiritual energy, but the sword energy was like a leech clinging to his bones, making it difficult for the wounds to heal. Sensing the sword energy within the wound, Shen Qinghen's willow leaf brows furrowed slightly as she analyzed. "No need, this should be their last resort. Speaking of which, it's still the sword energy of our sect's sword cultivators. Why is this sword intent so powerful? This injury is similar to that, girls? Hee hee." In fact, after they realized that the opponent's attack was not very powerful, and although they all looked very disheveled, they all seemed to have only superficial injuries. However, the sword intent was too powerful, and the three of them couldn't recover quickly without high-level healing medicine. At this moment, cold sweat slowly trickled down the foreheads of the two hidden swordsmen. It wasn't for any other reason than that Shen Qinghen's current calmness was the most infuriating state. Before the two could make a move, Shen Qinghen grabbed Jian Shir's petite body by the neck with one hand and lifted her up. But useless trash can't even stop this. Jian 12, panting heavily, dared not struggle. He glanced at the sword wound on Shen Qinghen's face and hurriedly said, "Your Holiness, it's all my fault." However, Shen Qinghen's frustration had not subsided, and he tightened his grip even more, as if he wanted to kill the girl to vent his anger. Meanwhile, Jian Jiu knelt down, not daring to plead for mercy, fearing that he too might be killed by Shen Lingxia when they returned. Just as Jian 12's eyes were glazed over, a figure walked out from outside the street. An old man who looked to be about 70 or 80 years old was short and hunched over, with deep wrinkles covering his face. He wore a tattered shirt with clearly visible patches and loose threads in some places. The old man gripped a cane tightly with both hands, taking slow and laborious steps, each step appearing somewhat strenuous, as if he might fall at any moment. Seeing this, Shen Qinghan casually tossed aside the sword 12, who was about to faint. Giant 12 dared not get up, but just lay on the ground, greedily breathing in the air. Saintess Shen, where is the disciple you arranged for me? What happened to you? How did you end up like this? With this wound on her pretty face, she'll probably never get married, haha. A hoarse voice rang out, and the old man walked over with a mocking tone. I've come all this way to this god-forsaken place. You didn't mess this up, did you? The old man's cloudy eyes opened slightly, like a candle flickering in the wind, as he weakly looked at Shen Qinghan. At this moment, although the girl's wound had stopped bleeding, the hideous scars, like the gaping mouth of a demon, showed no signs of healing. That person ran away, you can go now. Shen Qinghan picked up the long sword at his waist, pulled it out slightly, and examined his horrifying wound through the reflection of the blade. He then calmly said, What, they got away? HMPH? I heard that you promised to provide me with a human guide if I took on an apprentice, which is why I traveled all this way to get here. And now you're telling me you ran away. Upon hearing this, the old man tapped his cane on the floor, clearly getting anxious, and then said, I don't care about that. The promised human guidance. You should at least compensate me with 50 teenagers who are talented enough to guide chi into their bodies. HMPH. Otherwise, you, a righteous saintess, are doing such shady things with me. Aren't you afraid of ruining your reputation if word gets out? Seeing this, the old man stopped pretending and revealed his late-stage golden core cultivation, with billowing demonic energy enveloping the area like dark clouds. Seeing this, Shen Qinghan finally showed a serious expression and asked, Oh, what if I don't give it to you? HMPH, you'd better know what's good for you, if you don't give it to me. Before the old man could finish his sentence, a sword light flashed before his eyes like a white rainbow piercing the sun. The golden core stage old man didn't even have time to make a move before his head was separated from his body, with a trace of surprise still in his eyes. Shen Qinghan could be injured by a sneak attack from a sword aura of low cultivation level, but he could also kill a golden core stage demonic cultivator with a single sword strike. After wiping the blood off his sword, Shen Qinghan seemed to feel a little better and said to the two people behind him, Shen Qinghan encountered a demonic cultivator in Suzhou. After several fierce battles, although he was seriously injured, he finally eliminated the demon and protected the righteous path. After he finished speaking, the two behind him felt as if they had been granted a pardon. They understood what Shen Qinghan meant. Jian Jiu hurriedly picked up the old man's head and followed Shen Qinghan back to the other two with Jian Shear. Meanwhile, Shen Qinghan's wound refused to heal, so she had no choice but to take out a thin veil and cover her face as she walked. Chapter 15, It Won't Hurt Anymore. Although the sword sect's recruitment of disciples in Sioux City has not yet ended, the entire city is already bustling with activity, and this place has become a lively hub. After all, not everyone can give it a try, and those who watched the excitement for a while gradually returned to their usual lives. At the city gate, a small to medium-sized merchant guild led 5 or 6 horse-drawn carriages, loaded with Suzhou specialties out of the city. After the last carriage, a boy and a girl handed a piece of silver to the driver, got a seat on the wooden cart carrying goods, and hitched a ride out of the city. Master, thank you. The girl sat in the back of the carriage, swinging her legs, watching the city gate gradually shrink in her field of vision, and said to the boy next to her who was wearing a blue robe, sitting cross-legged with his sleeves tucked in. The two were Zhang Ruochen and Mu Yongui. Thank me for what? Mu Yongui squinted and looked up at the sky, seemingly lost in thought. Shen Qinghan's injury is really ugly. It's really ugly. Zhang Ruochen recalled the scene she had just witnessed in the building, where Shen Qinghan's wounds were similar to her own. She smiled faintly, a smile she hadn't shown in a long time. Seeing this, Mu Yongui decided to tease his obedient disciple. I didn't make this specifically for Ruochen. Actually, it would be even better if I could poke her head off. Ruochen doesn't think I did this to avenge her, does she? It was nearing evening, and the setting sun shone on the girl's face, making her look exceptionally beautiful. Upon hearing what Mu Yongui said, Jiang Ruochen, realizing she had been presumptuous, quickly waved her hand. Master, I misunderstood, please don't worry about it. Seeing Jiang Ruochen's shy appearance, Mu Yongui smiled slightly. I was just kidding you. It was just to help Ryuachin get revenge. As the holy maiden of the sword sect and the sect master's daughter, she has many trump cards. If we can't kill her, this is the only way. Then Mu Yungui said regretfully, "Alas, it's a pity that this scar can't be left on her face permanently. However, once Ryuachin and others reach a higher level, they can also regenerate new flesh and become beautiful again." Looking at the scar on Jiang Ryuachin's face, Mu Yungui hesitated for a moment, but couldn't help reaching out. He gently cupped Jiang Ryuachin's face in his hand. Seeing this, the girl did not avoid it, but instead closed her eyes slightly and leaned her head closer to her master's hand. Mu Yungui gently stroked the horrifying wound. Jiang Ryuachin trembled slightly, whether from pain or itchiness, but quickly returned to normal. "It must hurt a lot, right?" Mu Yungui's eyes were filled with heartache. The girl, who was only a little over 10 years old and had not yet embarked on the path of cultivation, was so badly injured that it is unknown how she recovered. The setting sun shone on the girl's face, and she smiled as she said, "It doesn't hurt anymore." But at that moment, a streak of light flew across the sky from the direction of Suzhou, which was almost out of sight. It's obviously something good happening. They're in such a hurry. Mu Yungui watched as the sword sect's immortal ship flew overhead and made a teasing remark. Taishuan sword sect. Du Wen really didn't expect that this simple outing would turn into such a mess. Looking at the white dress stained with blood, it was as eye-catching as red flowers adorning the canvas. To encounter a golden core stage demonic cultivator in such a small place, it's too much of a coincidence. However, one has no choice but to believe the head that Jian Jiu was carrying earlier, which was emanating demonic energy. This was the first time Du Wen had ever seen Shen Qinghan's golden eyes reveal such an undisguised killing intent and anger. For the first time ever, he didn't dare to go up and talk to her, but instead urged the flying boat to hurry back. Fortunately, despite the cost of consuming spirit stones, they returned to the sword sect in just half a day. The immortal boat stopped at the mountain gate, and after a flash of light, it was stored in Du Wen's spatial ring. The stars were already twinkling, but the dozen or so young men and women who had disembarked from the ferry boat were still not sleepy and were curiously looking at the surrounding mountains. "Junior sister Shen, what about you?" Before Du Wen could even ask, Shen Qinghan and Jian Jiu and Jian Shir had already transformed into a beam of sword light and flew towards the location of the sect leader. "Sai, junior sister, Jiang, do you think junior sister Shen's face was injured? She looked very angry. I wonder what happened during her battle with that demonic cultivator." Looking at the three people who had already walked away, Du Wen sighed. "Junior sister Jiang?" Seeing that the person behind him did not speak, Du Wen turned around and saw Jiang Yao still summoning her flying sword and jumping up. After swaying and regaining her balance, she hurriedly flew away on her sword. "Senior brother Du, haha, my master told me to go back early. I'll leave the rest to." As she finished speaking, Jiang Yao flew towards the Hall of Law Enforcement. In the blink of an eye, all four of them had run away, leaving Du Wen and a dozen or so teenagers watching the scene with curiosity. Well, Du Wen sighed. Today's events felt strange, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what was wrong. Helpless, he had no choice but to lead the people behind him into the sect. "You guys follow behind me." Three sword lights stopped in front of a magnificent hall. Only then did Shen Qinghan remove the white silk covering her wounds from her face, and the three of them went inside. Just as the three entered the main hall, an extremely terrifying barrier descended. Upon seeing this, Jian Jiu and Jian Shir immediately knelt down. Inside the main hall, seated on the throne, sat a middle-aged cultivator who appeared to be in his 30s, though his face showed some wrinkles. His long hair, a mix of black and white, was neatly combed, and he exuded an air of authority. It was none other than Shen Lingxiao, the sect leader of the sword sect. Before Shen Qinghan could speak, Shen Lingxiao saw the scar on his daughter's face, which, although healed, still left a bright red mark. With a casual wave of his hand, Jian Jiu and Jian Shir were sent flying backward. A sound of bones breaking rang out, and the two fell to the ground, their fates unknown. Shen Lingxiao snorted coldly, but then a surge of immense vitality swept over the three people in front of him. The lingering sword intent on Shen Qinghan's body was instantly wiped away by the powerful life force. Subsequently, the wounds on Shen Qinghan's face healed rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, his skin became fair, showing no signs of injury. "Thank you, father." Shen Qinghan touched his face, which had returned to its former appearance, and the humiliation and anger in his heart dissipated considerably. 912, get out." Upon hearing Shen Lingxiao's words, The two men, whose injuries had been healed, felt as if they had been granted a pardon. They quickly got up, thanked Shen Lingxiao, and hurriedly left. After the two left, only the proud father and daughter remained. The sword intent on the wound on your face is so intense. Someone who cultivates the Tai Chuan Heart Sutra, tell me, what happened? Shen Lingxiao, who possessed the cultivation of the void refinement stage, could tell at a glance that the injuries on his daughter's body were not simple, and his face turned somewhat gloomy. He was just trying to promote the cultivation of the holy demon heart, but his daughter ended up getting injured. The heart has been stolen, and Jian Qi has vanished without a trace. Shen Qinghen slowly recounted the events. After listening, Shen Lingxiao rested his head on his hand, leaned back in his seat, and slowly asked a question, his expression slightly serious. Have all those who knew about this been dealt with? Shen Lingxiao pondered. As a golden core stage sword cultivator, Jian Qi's killing power wasn't particularly strong, but he was one of the more cautious swordsmen in the dark sword sect. So why was he killed so hastily, according to his daughter's account? It's more likely that he defected. That sword energy? It didn't seem to be of a high level, but its sword intent was so high. I thought about it for a long time, but couldn't find a reasonable explanation. Unfortunately, I was busy with other matters, and as the sect leader, my actions would easily be noticed by the people in the enforcement hall, so I simply stopped thinking about it. Yes, but I wonder if Du Wen and Jiang Yao will figure something out. After all, this time it was quite a mess, Shen Qinghen replied. You don't need to worry about that for now. Bai Qian doesn't have any leverage over me. Even if she discovers something, she can't take away my position as sect leader. After all, half of the elders are already on my side. It's just a pity about this woman. She's been hinted at so many times but hasn't been moved. If she were to side with me, wouldn't the resources for breaking through to the nascent soul stage be a piece of cake? HMPH? They talk about the rules of the enforcement hall, but they're completely unyielding. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Shen Lingxiao slowly stood up from his seat, then walked steadily to Shen Qinghen's side, gently patted the girl's shoulder and comforted her in a calm tone. If that holy demon heart is still alive, it doesn't necessarily mean we've lost such a rare opportunity. We are all people with great fortune, and perhaps we will have a chance to meet again in the future. The most crucial thing right now is the Immortal Ascension Secret Realm. As far as I know, this secret realm contains heavenly essence liquid. Haven't you been suppressing your cultivation level for almost half a year? If everything goes smoothly this time, as long as you obtain the heavenly essence elixir, you will be able to use its medicinal power to break through your current realm with the strength of a 9th-grade golden core, and you will surely become the undisputed #1 prodigy of the Eastern continent. Don't dwell on this matter too much, otherwise your heavenly evolution divine demon heart will affect your cultivation. You are my daughter, Shen Lingxiao's daughter. Upon hearing Shen Lingxiao's words, a glint of light suddenly flashed in Shen Qinghen's eyes. He had been trying to suppress his cultivation level all along in order to find a rare and precious treasure that would allow him to break through with his unparalleled talent. Even the most precious treasures within the sect, some of which could be considered the sect's most prized possessions, could not guarantee a smooth path to the 9th-grade golden core realm. Shen Qinghen nodded helplessly, indicating that she understood. At this moment, Shen Lingxiao suddenly looked at his daughter's golden eyes and casually asked, "By the way, how's the fusion of your two holy eyes going?" Mentioning this matter slightly lessened Shen Qinghen's sense of humiliation. Recalling the pupil technique he had used in Suzhou, he replied, "I can now fully unleash the complete eye technique. It is now completely mine." Shen Lingxiao nodded slightly and then said, "If that's the case, then she could have died in the Immortal Ascension secret realm. If it weren't for this incident, I probably would have forgotten that such a hidden danger existed around me. Although the chances of being discovered are extremely slim, it's still best to be cautious." Chapter 16, Meteorite Dragon Mountains. Meteorite Dragon Mountains. A long mountain range lies between Gicheng and Jiangyu City of the Longyuan dynasty. As its name suggests, if a cultivator looks down from a high place, the entire mountain range resembles a dragon lying on the earth. However, whether it is a place where dragons perished is a matter of much debate. The caravan that set out from Suzhou had been traveling for 5 or 6 days when, just before reaching the Meteor Dragon Mountains, it turned northwest and took a detour. Even though crossing the Meteor Dragon Mountain range would save 4 or 5 days, no one would choose that route, because there are demons. Unlike the Northern Territory, where the demon race has its own territory, The demons of the eastern continent hide in various mountains and marshes. Apart from the major sects organizing operations to exterminate demons from time to time, and the rogue cultivators who come here specifically to hunt demons, no one would enter such a dangerous place. Deep within the Meteor Dragon Mountains, a large tree swayed violently before collapsing with a crash, with flashes of light occasionally streaking across its surface. The sword strikes need to be more ferocious. The speed of casting spells also needs to be faster. You must be careful to control the consumption of spiritual energy stored in your danshan. On a towering tree, Mu Yungui held a sharp dagger, deeply embedded in the trunk, and suspended in mid-air, supported by the dagger. His eyes were fixed on the battle scene below, and he issued a warning when necessary. Below, Jiang Ryuachin, her face glistening with sweat, gently wiped the sweat from her cheeks. She gripped the longsword tightly in both hands, holding it in reverse, and stared solemnly at the enemy before her. A gigantic, ox-sized, pale purple wolf. A wolf never acts alone. This is the alpha wolf, and if it doesn't gather its companions by now, it's a lone wolf. Just go all out. Mu Yungui offered a reminder. Upon hearing this, Jiang Ryuachin calmed down slightly. Thank you for the reminder, master. No longer concerned about potential dangers around him. A golden light suddenly emanated from his left palm. Heavenly evolution trapped Earth. With a flick of her slender hand, a thorn formed from condensed light shot out like an arrow. Mu Yungui looked at the spell Jiang Ryuachin was casting below and pondered to himself. This is the spell that Shen Qinghen practiced in his previous life, the heavenly evolution imprisoning heaven and earth technique. Ryuachin has practiced it quite well. In his previous life, Shen Qinghen relied on the surging power of endless light to weave together an enormous cage of thorns, from which even cultivators in the tribulation transcending stage could not escape. However, at this moment, Jiang Ryuachin could only exert less than 1/10,000th of its power, and could only construct a thorn, not a cage. The girl found another way to use it as a whip. Okay, small ones are cute too, but Mu Yungui, suspended in mid-air, was already quite satisfied. After all, being able to unleash a low-level heaven-ranked technique after comprehending it during the chi refining stage is already extremely powerful. It's just that Ryuachin's cultivation level is not high enough. If her cultivation level were to improve, her power would be at least one level stronger than Shen Qinghen's. While observing the potential variables outside the battlefield below and watching the girl in battle, Mu Yungui's face was no longer relaxed, but full of solemnity. Practice makes perfect, and demon hunting is the best way to improve your strength. Ryuachin, please don't blame me. The wolf was filled with murderous intent and confusion. It had thought that the petite girl in front of it would be easy to eat, but not only had it sensed its ambush earlier, but now it was fighting it to a standstill, and it couldn't even run away when it wanted to. After Jiang Ryuachin unleashed her battle technique, the saliva flowing from the giant maw of the wolf mixed with scarlet blood, and then it pounced on the golden thorns like a hungry tiger. Ignoring the blood filling his mouth, the wolf bit the golden vine and began to shake its head wildly, trying to fling the girl on the other side of the vine away. Jiang Ryuachin bit her cherry lips tightly, her face full of stubbornness, and she gripped the vines tightly in her hands, pulling against the other side. The battle reached a stalemate, with a golden vine connecting a small body to a huge wolf. The difference in strength was obvious, but it was difficult to determine a winner. Kill you, and today I'll eat wolf meat with master. Jiang Ryuachin's eyes shone like rubies as she muttered. The wolf below seemed to understand Jiang Ryuachin's words, letting out a low growl before unleashing a burst of purple demonic energy, attempting to pull the girl over. As the demonic energy unleashed by the wolf-like creature surged forth, Jiang Ryuachin was flung away, crashing directly into a giant tree, sending splinters flying. Mu Yungui's eyes flickered slightly, and he was about to make a move when he saw Jiang Ryuachin still holding onto the vines. She quickly stood up and steadied herself, and a burst of colorful light shone on her robe, shimmering like stars. The rainbow robe, a defensive magic item found in Giant Chi's spatial ring, was a godsend for Mu Yungui. He had already put it on Jiang Ryuachin when they left the city, and it could reduce the damage from attacks from those below the Golden Core stage. Even so, Mu Yungui was still full of worry. The heavenly evolution divine heart was operating frantically, repairing the girl's injuries. The girl's face was full of stubbornness as she secretly circulated her cultivation technique. Then the wolf suddenly realized that its life essence was being drawn towards the girl along the golden vines. Realizing something was wrong, it tried to let go, but it was controlled by something, as if its mouth was tied up and it could not open its mouth. The girl smiled slightly. Then the attack shifted, and the weakened wolf was pulled by the girl's petite arm, falling heavily to the ground like a seesaw. Before it could even make a move, a long sword sliced across its neck. Brush! A splash of demonic blood landed on the girl's face. Only after completing everything did the girl end the spell, and the light in her left hand dissipated. Upon seeing this, Mu Yungui, who was in mid-air, withdrew the dagger in his hand and landed lightly in front of the giant wolf. Ryuachin, you mustn't keep trading injuries like this. Mu Yungui gently tapped the girl's head and said softly. The girl had not yet recovered from the battle and looked up at Mu Yungui, panting heavily. Demonic blood splattered on the girl's fair face, which had long since recovered, and paired with her eyes glowing as she circulated her cultivation technique. The scene was eerily beautiful yet strangely alluring. The girl smiled slightly, her current appearance seemingly overlapping with that of the tyrannical Empress from her previous life. Upon seeing this scene, Mu Yungui was inexplicably stunned for a moment. I want to kill it as soon as possible so I can have a good meal with my master. Jiang Ryuachin noticed that Mu Yungui was a little angry, so she explained, trying to get away with it. After hearing this, Mu Yungui came to his senses, shook his head, and summoned a handkerchief to wipe away the demon blood from the girl's face. Fool, demon flesh is poisonous. Ah, the girl looked disappointed. Go take a shower. After saying that, Jiang Ryuachin walked towards a nearby river. Mu Yungui looked at Jiang Ryuachin's petite figure with some emotion. He reached the 7th level of qi refining in less than a month of cultivation, which is a level higher than his own. He marveled at Jiang Ryuachin's talent and noticed that the girl had become much more cheerful since their first meeting. Under the moonlight, the two lit a campfire under a giant tree, with a delicate little flag stuck in the ground beside them. The cloud-concealing banner was also found in Giant Qi's spatial ring. It was a magical artifact used to conceal one's aura. Every time he used these magical treasures, Mu Yungui couldn't help but marvel at how many good things this golden core sword cultivator, who had only been on the scene for less than 10 minutes, possessed. From household items to deadly weapons, it's unclear whether Shen Lingxiu arranged everything for Dark Sword in this way, but it was quite thoughtful. As a spirit stone merged into the flag, a transparent barrier descended, completely concealing the aura emanating from the area. From the outside, nothing seemed amiss. Unless one was extremely close, even a Foundation establishment stage demon wouldn't be able to detect it. The campfire roared, its light illuminating everything around them, including their faces. Jiang Ryuachin sat quietly beside Mu Yungui, closed her eyes, and began to meditate and cultivate, trying to digest the insights gained from today's battle. Mu Yungui felt the powerful light emanating from Jiang Ryuachin and was secretly amazed. Such an opportunity was rare and could not be wasted. Therefore, he only used a portion of his mind to observe the surroundings and ensure safety before devoting the rest of his mind and body to cultivation. In fact, Mu Yungui had long discovered that his cultivation speed increased when he was cultivating alongside Jiang Ryuachin. Given this benefit, he naturally wouldn't miss it. Every time he was with Jiang Ryuachin, he would choose to engage in dual cultivation, using the light energy emanating from her to accelerate his own cultivation progress. Although Mu Yungui in his previous life did not have a cultivation partner, he had a broad understanding of various methods and secret manuals in the cultivation world. He had even studied the dual cultivation manual of a certain Huan sect in depth. Cough, cough. Of course, I observed this exhilarating spiritual practice with the spirit of academic research. Looking back now, I realize that my current cultivation speed is almost catching up with the speed described in those secret manuals. Half an hour later, the girl's curved eyelashes fluttered slightly, and then she ended her cultivation. Mu Yungui looked at her intently and saw that her aura had become much stronger. Master, can we do that today? Jiang Ryuachin mustered her courage, blinked her eyes, and looked at Mu Yungui with a hint of expectation before shyly speaking. Chapter 17, Observing the Sword. Looking into the girl's expectant eyes, Mu Yungui was already quite impressive to be able to resist for even a second. The Empress, who was once high above and mighty in her previous life, actually had such a real and adorable side. Mu Yungui had a misconception that Jiang Ryuachin was overly attached to him. However, he didn't feel any discomfort or aversion, since he was the only person Ryuachin could rely on now. Ryuachin, it's easy to be misunderstood if you talk like that, Mu Yungui said, rubbing his forehead. Jiang Ryuachin didn't quite understand and asked, Master, what did you say? And nothing. Mu Yungui shifted his position, gesturing for Ryuachin to sit next to him. As soon as she finished speaking, Jiang Ryuachin snapped out of her daze, a shy blush instantly spreading across her delicate face. Seeing the girl's reaction, Mu Yungui couldn't help but pinch her soft, delicate face. It feels really good. But in the blink of an eye, this shyness was replaced by joy. She carefully moved toward Mu Yungui, found a comfortable spot to lean against the tree trunk, and gently rested her head on Mu Yungui's broad and sturdy shoulders. Jiang Ryuachin blushed slightly and said shyly. Ryuachin felt very safe sleeping next to her master. As she inhaled that familiar and reassuring scent, the tension in the girl's heart gradually eased, replaced by an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Master, how much longer will it take before we can completely leave this Meteor Dragon mountain range? They had been here for 3 or 4 days, and during this time, Mu Yungui had not made a move. Jiang Ryuachin, on the other hand, had successfully eliminated 4 or 5 demonic beasts by relying on her own strength. However, because Mu Yungui was with her, the girl did not find this period of time unbearable, and her question was purely out of curiosity. If we continue heading northwest, it should take another 2 or 3 days to successfully leave the Meteor Dragon Mountains and reach Jiangyu City. Unlike our Suzhou, which is so remote, Jiangyu City has a celestial ferry crossing nearby. Once we get there, it will be much easier for us to take a celestial boat to that secret realm of immortals, Mu Yungui patiently explained to her. The warm firelight shone on the two of them, and before they knew it, the girl was already sleepy and yawned. Are you sleepy? If you are, take a rest. I'll keep watch. Seeing this, Mu Yungui smiled and said softly, then Ryuachin should rest for a while, and we'll switch her around later tonight. After saying that, Jiang Ryuachin leaned against Mu Yungui and fell asleep. Looking at the exhausted girl beside him who had quickly fallen asleep, Mu Yungui began to think about his next plan. To be honest, besides training Ryuachin's abilities, there was another reason why she didn't take the detour with the caravan. In the previous life, the Tai Chuan sword sect was able to stand out from other sects in the eastern continent not only because of the sect leader's strength, but also because of its solid foundation. The Tai Chuan sword sect possesses 5 immortal swords. The Tai Chuan weapon, which only the sect leader can possess. The Zhen Fang Yuan, held by the Law Enforcement Hall. King Fang, the key figure in the sect's grand formation. The retrograde process, which involves advancing one's rank after entering the tribulation transcending stage. And then there's the purpose of this trip, the obsession with the legend of sword and fairy. Jian Qi's longsword remained in Su City, while another was in Ryu Chan's hands. The Su Hui sword he used in his previous life had not yet been forged, so he was currently without a sword to use. As a sword cultivator, one needs a sword, and preferably a celestial sword, one of the sharpest swords in the world. The immortal swords are all heaven-rank weapons, but even a blacksmith at the tribulation transcending stage needs several decades to forge one. Moreover, every time an immortal sword appears, it stirs up a bloodbath. Besides those forged, there are many more divine swords left over from ancient times, before the heavenly Tao was lost, and immortal swords naturally born between heaven and earth. The obsession of the Tai Chuan sword sect is the latter, which Shen Qinghan brought back when he was in the nascent soul stage and was on a mission near the Dragonfall Mountains. However, Shen Qinghan never revealed where she obtained her obsession, only vaguely stating that it came from this place. Mu Yungui could only speculate at this point. Moreover, the obsession of the sword and fairy is evil enough. If one's divine will is not strong enough, one will be controlled by the sword itself and go astray. In the previous life, because Shen Qinghan brought back this sword without explaining it, 5 or 6 disciples with exceptional talent were killed by the sword when they tried to use it. This incident enraged the sect's enforcement hall, which demanded that Shen Qinghan resign from her position as Holy Maiden, but Shen Lingxiao suppressed the demands. In his previous life, Mu Yungui did not try to obsess, because he was so fond of tracing back that he did not pay much attention to it. However, at this moment, Mu Yungui decided to give it a try. My thoughts returned to this point. Maybe it's not a dragon, Mu Yungui speculated, pondering the location of the immortal sword. It shouldn't be in the head. After a moment's thought, Mu Yungui decided to head towards the 7 inches of this mountain range tomorrow to see if he could find anything. After making his plan, Mu Yungui decided to take a short rest. He sent out several strands of his divine sense, which flew around like birds, instantly covering an area of several miles. Although he lost his cultivation after being reborn, his divine sense was honed to an extremely strong level, allowing him to rest while observing his surroundings. This can be considered one of Mu Yungui's trump cards. An hour later, night had fallen and the campfire had gradually died down, leaving only a faint warmth. Although it is spring or summer, the air in the mountains becomes unusually cold at night, in stark contrast to the warmth of the day. Even Mu Yungui, who had already embarked on the path of cultivation, was awakened by the cold wind. Mu Yungui exhaled a breath of stale air, shifted his body slightly, and felt the coolness of the night. A single, clear, glistening raindrop fell onto his leg. Is it raining? No, it's a girl's saliva. Mu Yungui twitched the corner of his mouth. An hour was enough for Mu Yungui, whose divine sense was powerful to fully rest. However, it wasn't enough for Jiang Ruochen, who had exhausted herself. The girl's sleeping posture remained graceful, and as she slept, she changed from leaning to resting her head on Mu Yungui's lap. She seemed to be sleeping soundly, so Mu Yungui let her be. A cold and aloof female demon empress in her past life was raised by herself into an adorable and innocent lowly. Not so bad, right? Bright moonlight filtered through the dense foliage, casting a silvery glow across the forest. Apart from the occasional clear bird song and the rustling of leaves in the breeze, there was no other sound. Having rested fully, Mu Yungui gently lowered his head to look at the girl in his arms, reached out his fingers, and gently tidied her somewhat messy hair, then turned his gaze to the particularly conspicuous scar. After a moment's thought, Mu Yungui closed his eyes and began to circulate his cultivation technique. Observing the sword, the unique talent of the sword spirit saint body holder is the ability to deduce the swordsman's actions from the result, and Mu Yungui tried to use it on this scar that he cared about. My thoughts drifted to a sea of fire. Holding a long, snow-white sword, he didn't hesitate to plunge it into the neck of the unconscious girl who had fallen to the ground. The sword pierced several centimeters deep, creating a horrifying wound. As bright red blood slowly flowed out, he slowly lifted the sword and slashed open the wound up to her cheek. He only stopped when the girl's once tender face was stained crimson with blood. Mu Yungui slowly opened his eyes and remained silent for a moment. Just now he had only simulated the damage Shen Qinghen had caused to Ruochen in his mind. But even so, a shadow crossed his eyes, and his killing intent toward Shen Qinghen increased. The obsessive madness and tyranny hidden beneath the calm face of the swordsman can be deduced from his swordsmanship. We'll meet again, Shen Qinghen. Mu Yungui's face darkened as he thought to himself. Just then, a thought flew swiftly from afar into the center of Mu Yungui's forehead, interrupting his thoughts. Mu Yungui quietly sensed the information brought by this mental object and quickly digested it. Then he gently embraced the girl in his arms, and with a flash, he moved swiftly like a ghost, arriving at a large tree in the blink of an eye. Master, are there demons? The girl woke up with a start, and when she found herself being held tightly in her master's arms, she was somewhat flustered. She hurriedly struggled to her feet and hid in a tree with Mu Yungui. The girl nervously looked around while wiping the drool from the corner of her mouth, wondering to herself if she had done something strange. However, there was no time to think about these things at that moment. A sound came from afar, and the two looked in that direction. 3 points of light were flying rapidly towards them, occasionally accompanied by spells that struck their backs. A colossal object followed closely behind them, getting closer and closer as trees collapsed with a deafening roar. All 3 cultivators are at the foundation establishment stage. Following behind is a spirit-devouring spider at the peak of foundation establishment. Chapter 18, Cake Mafia. A heads up, there may be some sensitive or offensive content in the next few chapters. You can skip to Chapter 25 without affecting the plot. The Meteor Dragon mountain range is very large, and in fact, the probability of encountering battles between other cultivators and demons is actually very small. Even if they encounter each other, they generally won't interfere too much in the other's battle. Human hearts are unpredictable, and rashly offering help might bring misfortune upon oneself. In the dark forest, the cultivators here are all hunters. Mu Yungui stared at the 3 disheveled figures in the distance. They were around 25 or 26 years old, 2 men and 1 woman, and they looked quite disheveled at the moment. Brother Zunjin, has your spiritual energy recovered? Following the voice, the beautiful female cultivator in a silk robe cast a spell haphazardly behind her and asked the white-robed man beside her with some anxiety. At this moment, the female cultivator looked quite miserable. Although she had no fatal injuries, her exquisite silk robe was tattered and torn, and even her soft, white breasts were almost impossible to cover up with the tattered clothes. What a powerful charm spell! On the tree trunk, Mu Yungui looked at that pure white evil, his gaze inexplicably becoming solemn. Master, where can I find a charm spell? Not understanding what Mu Yungui was saying, Jiang Ruochen followed Mu Yungui's gaze with innocent eyes. As the female cultivator ran, a surging wave came into view, and Jiang Ruochen only then realized what was happening and said somewhat embarrassedly, "Master, do you like that type of woman?" A sudden sense of loss arose, but it quickly dissipated. Jiang Ruochen recalled a woman in her strange memory who resembled her. Perhaps her own breasts weren't so bad after all. I don't know if it's true, if it is. Looking at her petite frame, Jiang Ruochen sighed softly and made up her mind to cook more food. Ruochen, this isn't the time to talk about this. Mu Yungui interrupted. The 3 Foundation establishment stage cultivators must have been fighting that soul-devouring spider for quite some time. Mu Yungui stood outside the battlefield, observing the situation inside with keen eyes. He immediately discerned the true nature of the 3. A sword cultivator at the peak of the Foundation establishment stage, a spear cultivator at the mid-Foundation establishment stage, and, well, there was also a seemingly insignificant figurehead who had just entered the Foundation establishment stage. Wow, that's pushing the limits. Someone with this level of skill dares to provoke the soul-devouring spider. It should be noted that, not counting the innate supernatural abilities of the demon race, in terms of physique alone, demons of the same realm are much stronger than humans. Only a few exceptionally talented individuals can contend with demons of the same realm. Of course, there are very few cultivators in the world like Jiang Ruochen, who can suppress even Foundation establishment stage demons while still in the chi refining stage. However, there happen to be 2 people squatting in the tree here. What a pity we misjudged the strength of that monster, and it didn't escape. Mu Yungui shook his head inwardly, already preparing to loot the bag. After all, he didn't dare to help without knowing the other party's identity and stance, for fear of being stabbed in the back. Set aside your desire to help others and respect their fate. The fighting on the battlefield will not stop because of the concerns of bystanders. As the woman finished speaking, another handsome man with sword-like eyebrows, bright eyes, flowing white robes, and half black and half white hair said in a deep voice, "My spiritual power has mostly recovered, but I need Brother Zhang to hold this beast off for a moment." Upon hearing the shouts, the gunman quickly turned around, agreed to the white-robed swordsman's request, gritted his teeth, his veins bulged in his hands, and his blood and chi flowed through his body. Then he used all his strength to thrust out a spear. "But I only have one shot. Zhao Zunjin, my life is in your hands today, don't mess this up." The gun shot out, followed by a whooshing sound. Bang, a loud bang rang out, as deafening as the sound of 2 iron plates colliding. The spear pierced one of the 10-meter-long soul-devouring spider's sickle-like legs, and a foul-smelling slime splattered out. Hiss! The soul-eating spider was in great pain, letting out a piercing scream, and its massive body came to a sudden stop. Its enormous, pincer-like mandibles opened wide and bit down hard on the spear, trying to pull it out. With a crisp snap, the sturdy spear was easily broken in 2. The spearhead was even still stuck in its mouth. Zhang Wu's face was extremely grim. Ink tray sword technique. Taking advantage of this brief interval, Zhao Zunjin gave a soft shout and performed a series of hand seals with fluid grace. The spiritual energy around him quickly gathered into streaks of black sword energy. These sword energies danced in the air like flowing ink and swiftly merged into the longsword in his hand. Out! As he uttered that word, the longsword in his hand shot out with astonishing speed, carrying an incomparably sharp momentum, like a flowing and elegant calligraphy work, heading straight for the head of the soul-devouring spider. With a single sword strike, Zhao Zunjin's face instantly turned ashen, and large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. That attack had nearly exhausted all the spiritual energy within him. It has to go well. The soul-devouring spider sensed the immense danger emanating from the ink-like sword flying towards it, and it hissed, daring not to be negligent in the slightest. Its water jar-shaped belly deflated rapidly as if punctured, and then a giant white spider web shot out from its tail. The spider web moved like lightning, incredibly fast, and in the blink of an eye it tightly enveloped the longsword. However, despite this, the incomparably sharp sword energy was not completely blocked and continued to surge forward with unstoppable momentum. Seeing this, the soul-eating spider raised its forelimbs to protect its head. With a single sword strike, one of the soul-devouring spider's legs was cleanly severed, and the flying sword fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. The foul-smelling demon blood dripped like mud, but although its leg was destroyed, it was not killed. One man broke his gun, and another man exhausted his spiritual energy. The soul-devouring spider shook its head to shake off the demon blood, trying to clear its mind, and then limped toward the three of them. One step, two steps. They drew ever closer to the three provisions they already considered theirs. A sense of despair rose in the hearts of the three. Linger, you run away. It's badly injured and should be able to escape. I'll hold this beast off. After a moment of silence, Zhang Wu, the gun-wielding expert, made up his mind, stood in front of the two, and prepared to sacrifice himself. I can't leave Zunjin behind and live on alone. If I'm going to leave, I'll take him with me. Upon hearing this, Shang Yuanling resolutely refused, and instead took a few steps forward to support Zhao Zunjin, who was about to collapse. What time is it? You're still thinking about him. Seeing his beloved make such a move at the last moment, Zhang Wu was still somewhat angry, but after a moment he felt helpless. Lingers. Upon witnessing this scene, a sinister glint flashed in Zhao Zunjin's eyes, as if he had made up his mind. An unknown spell was flowing from his hands. Just as they were about to make a move, Shang Yuanling, who was standing nearby, caught a glimpse of a shadow by the moonlight. Someone's there. The moonlight shone down, illuminating two blurry figures. Shang Yuanling, who had already fallen into despair, couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Without bothering to check the specifics, she waved her hand and unleashed a sharp wind blade, slashing directly at the two figures. If someone were to drag them into this melee, their chances of survival would be much greater. Tusk! A click of the tongue rang out, but the two figures easily swept backward into the air, dodging Shang Yuanling's attack. However, Mu Yungui and Jiang Ruochen's figures were now exposed to the sight of the three people below, and the soul-devouring spider. The soul-devouring spider immediately felt an irresistible temptation, an instinct felt from its bloodline. These two people in front of me are definitely a great source of nutrition. Perhaps by consuming the other party, one can reach the golden core stage. Following its instincts, the demon ignored the three enemies before it, crouched down, and then suddenly leaped up, shooting into the air like a cannonball, creating a deep crater in the ground as it lunged at Jiang Ruochen. Clearly, it had already regarded the two people in the air as more delicious prey. Since I have no sword, let me be a warrior for once. Ruochen, be careful. Let me show you what a true master martial artist is. After giving the young girl his instructions, Mu Yungui took a deep breath, clenched his right fist, and swung it out without hesitation. He didn't mobilize even a trace of spiritual energy within his body. Relying solely on his physical strength, he displayed astonishing power. With a loud bang, the soul-devouring spider, which had leaped high and was preparing to launch an attack, was slammed back to the ground by this punch before it could even get close to Jiang Ruochen, raising clouds of dust. The three were shocked by what they saw. The moonlight, like water, shone down, clearly illuminating the figure of the young man. The young martial artist in black robes exuded an imposing aura. The soul-devouring spider seemed to have been caught off guard by this young man, whose cultivation level was not high. After landing, taking advantage of the brief moment when the soul-devouring spider got up, Mu Yungui quickly moved forward and threw another punch at its face. Some of the more enraged soul-eating spiders raised their remaining, massive, scythe-like forelimbs and slashed at it. Then the expressions of the three people, who had initially breathed a slight sigh of relief, became serious again. They watched helplessly as the black-clad youth was slapped dozens of meters away by the soul-eating spider, crashing heavily into a large tree, his fate unknown. Chapter 19:2 Rogue Cultivators. Looking at the young martial artist who was at his peak from the moment he appeared, the three rogue cultivators, who had thought they could finally catch their breath, felt their hearts leap into their throats once again. He's really strong. No wonder those three were in such a sorry state, Mu Yungui thought to himself. However, it was just a spur-of-the-moment test of my physical strength, and it didn't fall short of my expectations. Mu Yungui looked at his arm and saw a shallow red scratch on it, from which blood was seeping out continuously, while a purple demonic aura was slowly invading his skin. Something's still not right. Even though this soul-devouring spider was beaten like this by these three and lost a leg, its strength is still maintained at the mid-foundation establishment stage. No sooner had he finished speaking than Mu Yungui quickly stood up and nimbly dodged the attack of the spirit-devouring spider that was rushing towards him. Then, with a confident expression, Mu Yungui revealed his trump card. Go, Ruochen! The three of them, along with the spirit-devouring spider, all focused their attention on Mu Yungui. In a secluded corner of the battlefield, unnoticed by anyone, a glint flashed in the eyes of the petite girl. Heavenly evolution, divine punishment technique. Any demon that harms master must die. Jiang Ryuachen's little face was puffed up round, like an angry little pufferfish, which was extremely cute. The heavenly evolution god and demon's mind raced wildly, and all the spiritual power within his body transformed into pure light. A disc-sized halo of light appeared behind him, radiating pure killing intent. Then, a pure white light arrow emerged from it and shot towards the head of the soul-devouring spider like lightning. Before the three people beside him could even react, the light arrow had already pierced the head of the soul-devouring spider. A flash of white light appeared, and a powerful burst of light energy exploded. The residual force even sent the three people 50 or 60 meters away, taking several steps back from the shockwave. Before the soul-devouring spider could even react, its head was blasted high into the air. Its torso lay limp to the side as if its spine had been removed, with foul-smelling blood gushing out like a spring. Its headless body twitched slightly before returning to stillness. The girl easily ended the battle with a single move. "Master, are you injured?" After the battle ended, Jiang Ryuachen rushed towards Mu Yungui, tightly grasping his arm with her small hands and carefully checking him over. "No need, this is just a minor injury, not even a superficial wound," Mu Yungui said nonchalantly. "No, please let Ryuachen check it out, okay? That monster seems to be poisonous to me." Jiang Ryuachen's tone was filled with a strange insistence. "If you had come any later, the wound would have almost healed," Mu Yungui said with a smile. At this moment, the three disheveled individuals around them breathed a sigh of relief. Zhao Zunjun, dressed in white, dusted himself off, exhaled a breath of stale air, and walked towards the young man and woman to express his gratitude. "Thank you both for your help. Who is your master? Does he need his own disciple to worry about him?" To maintain his image, Mu Yungui patted his chest and assured him. "But that giant spider looks poisonous." The girl's delicate eyebrows furrowed slightly, her expression showing some worry. "It's only at the foundation establishment stage. How could it possibly hurt me? I was just testing its strength." Mu Yungui gently rubbed Jiang Ryuachen's face. "But master, your hands are all purple." Zhao Zunjun, who had come up from the side, looked rather grim. The two people in front of him seemed oblivious to him and were chatting amongst themselves. Looking at the two people in front of him, it seemed that their cultivation levels were only at the qi refining stage, and they had even saved his life, which was indeed a bit embarrassing. On the ravaged battlefield, Zhang Wu, the spear cultivator, went alone to the corpse of the spirit-devouring spider and pulled out the spear tip. Although he no longer needed to sacrifice his own life, Shang Yuanling's choice just now made his figure seem somewhat lonely. After changing into clean clothes, the female cultivator Shang Yuanling walked towards the three of them, casually grumbling. "Hey, Brother Zunjun thanked you. Why are you pretending not to see him? Why are you putting on this act?" It wasn't until Shang Yuanling spoke that Zhao Zunjun's awkwardness of being left out ended, and the two who were still arguing stopped and looked at the handsome cultivator in front of them. To be honest, Mu Yungui and Jiang Ryuachen didn't intentionally ignore each other. Rather, they simply hadn't noticed each other until now. However, hearing the other party's tone, Mu Yungui, who had no intention of interfering in the first place, was even more speechless. "Ha, is this the attitude of those who were rescued? Come to think of it, you should be grateful that we didn't take advantage of you to kill and rob us in the Meteor Dragon Mountains." The moment they started talking, Mu Yungui's impression of this fairly good-looking female cultivator plummeted. "Linger, don't be rude." Zhao Zunjun promptly stopped the tense conversation, then gave Mu Yungui and the other person a smile and began to introduce them. "Thank you for your help, fellow Taoists. I am Zhao Zunjun, a sword cultivator in the late foundation establishment stage. Shang Yuanling." The female cultivator crossed her arms in front of her chest, her eyebrows furrowed, and she exuded a sharp aura. Her eyes were filled with dissatisfaction and displeasure. The spearman also magically produced a spear handle from his spatial ring, mounted the spear, twirled it a few times, and then walked over after calming himself down. "Thank you for your help, young brother. I am Zhang Wu, a spearman. If it weren't for your help, little brother, I might have ended up in that beast's belly." Zhang Wu clasped his hands in a traditional martial arts greeting to Mu Yungui. "It wasn't that someone used magic to force us down, it was indeed," Mu Yungui said inappropriately. "I'm sorry. The situation was urgent at the time, so Linger made this decision," Zhao Zunjun said apologetically. "It's all right, it doesn't matter. It's just a foundation establishment stage demon, right, Ryuachen?" Mu Yungui said calmly. Well, it's mainly because Master is so powerful, Jiang Ryuachin said calmly. The three of them listened to the conversation between the two young Qi refining stage cultivators and unconsciously twitched their eyebrows. Goodness, that's quite a boast. Moreover, the black-clad boy who was sent flying was actually the girl's master. The three rogue cultivators were curious about the title. If they weren't mistaken, the boy's cultivation level was a level lower than the girl's, and judging from his previous performance, well, it was hard to say. HMPH, if we hadn't fought this monster for so long and exhausted its demonic power, what business would you have of us? As the spiritual energy slowly recovered, Shang Yuanling was no longer pleased with the two Qi refining stage children. Their cultivation level was not high, yet they were so arrogant and conceited. Most importantly, the other party showed absolutely no respect for Zhao Zunjin, whom he admired. Oh, then why did you shoot that spell at the tree we were in instead of that spirit-devouring spider? You couldn't have been afraid, could you? Mu Yungui mocked. I clearly saved you. Why are you behaving this way? Mu Yungui showed no mercy to Shang Yuanling and said sarcastically, if only we had stayed far away, she would have behaved herself when she saw that monster eat half of the person. After hearing this, Zhang Wu gave a wry smile. Seeing this, Zhao Zunjin hurriedly interrupted the three of them again. Fellow Taoists, may I ask your names? The master martial artist is named Mu Yungui, and this is my little apprentice, Shang. The two of them are independent cultivators and have no master. Mu Yungui gave Jiang Ryuachin a random, make-up name to avoid leaving any trace that would allow the Tai Xuan sword sect to find her. Fellow Taoist, is your hand injured? I have some blood-clotting powder here. Zhao Zunjin noticed the injury on Mu Yungui's arm with his sharp eyes. With a thought, he flipped his hand, and a white porcelain bottle appeared in his hand. He strode forward, grabbed Mu Yungui's arm without hesitation, and carefully aimed the bottle at the slightly purplish wound, gently pouring the powder from the bottle onto the wound evenly. While tending to Mu Yungui's wounds, Zhao Zunjin frowned and said, this soul-devouring spider is indeed quite peculiar. I don't know why, but being cut by its scythe-like sharp body actually slows down the flow of spiritual energy. However, before he could finish speaking, a sharp smack rang out. Mu Yungui swung his arm sharply, violently shoving Zhao Zunjin's hand away. Zhao Zunjin hadn't expected the black-clad youth to be so strong. Caught off guard, he staggered backward a few steps and almost fell to the ground. A conspicuous red mark appeared on his originally fair wrist, and the white porcelain bottle fell to the ground and shattered, scattering some medicinal powder around. I'm sorry, I don't need pills of unknown origin for the time being. Mu Yungui looked at the wound on his hand, shook off the powder, and said calmly. Shang Yuanling frowned deeply. She couldn't understand why this martial artist had repeatedly taken her brother Zunjin's kindness as a sign of suspicion. She could no longer contain her dissatisfaction and shouted, do you know how precious this powder is? Zhang Wu and I have both used it, and the effects are remarkable. Yet you are so ungrateful, taking other people's kindness for granted. You're just a Qi refining stage cultivator, who would be so bored as to frame you. Mu Yungui glanced at Shang Yuanling and said slowly, that's hard to say. After all, we are all rogue cultivators. If there weren't special reasons, why wouldn't we find a stable sect to stay in, but instead come to this meteor Dragon Mountain range to hunt demons? Shang Yuanling was speechless for a moment, unable to refute. Seeing this, Mu Yungui stopped worrying about it. He didn't care what unspeakable difficulties the other party might have. It was none of his business. Feeling the condition inside the wound in his hand, the purple tinge was fading away. Mu Yungui's eyes were calm, and he seemed lost in thought. Zhao Zunjin slowly picked up the white porcelain bottle, feeling a pang of heartache. However, glancing at the other person's wound, she sprinkled some medicinal powder into it. The purple demonic aura gradually dissipated, and the wound slowly healed. She couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, a smile appearing on her lips. Chapter 20 Tea Talk. It's all right. Brother Mu's caution is well-founded. The people present were not from any particular sect. They were all independent cultivators, so Zhao Zunjin understood. Seeing this, Shang Yuanling didn't say anything more, but her expression showed slight dissatisfaction. Do you have anything else to say? If not, my disciple and I will take out the demon core and leave. Farewell. Not wanting to talk to the three, Mu Yungui took Jiang Ryuachin's hand and turned to walk towards the head of the soul-devouring spider. Buff! Upon hearing what Mu Yungui said, Shang Yuanling couldn't help but sneer, as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world. As expected, he's a poor kid with a low cultivation level. He doesn't even know that only demonic creatures at the Golden Core stage have demonic cores. With your level of cultivation, you think you can hunt for demon cores. Shang Yuanling mocked, her eyes filled with disdain and contempt. These two can't even distinguish between the realms of demons. However, Mu Yungui and Jiang Ruochen ignored the arrogant female cultivator. They walked straight to the demon head, which was the size of a water vat, and stopped there. A flash of light appeared in Jiang Ruochen's sword, and the enormous head was instantly split in two. Then, she took out an oval, pale purple crystal core from the split head. The crystal core emitted a faint light and was crystal clear. The surrounding atmosphere became unusually quiet, with only the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Demon core! The three people in the distance stared wide-eyed at the sight, their faces filled with disbelief. How could this be? Only demons at the Golden Core stage can condense a demon core, Shang Yuanling said in surprise. Upon seeing the demon core, Zhao Zunjin's breathing became rapid. A hint of madness flashed in his usually calm and gentle eyes. How could a Foundation establishment stage demon have a demon core? Shang Yuanling was incredulous at the shocking turn of events. Do you believe me if I say it grew because it ate too many people? Mu Yungui said, playing with the crystal core in his hand. Zhang Wu, standing nearby, asked in confusion. Only when a demon beast cultivates to a certain level and reaches the Golden Core stage can it condense the originally liquid spiritual energy in its Qi into a demon core through continuous condensation and compression. Why did this soul-devouring spider condense a demon core during its Foundation establishment stage? The spiritual power contained in this demon core is immeasurable compared to that of a spirit stone. For Foundation establishment cultivators, having a demon core as an aid greatly increases their chances of breaking through to the next realm. Although the geniuses of those major sects may not lack the rare and precious materials needed to break through their cultivation realms, there are still many more cultivators in this world who have to fight tooth and nail for even a little bit of cultivation resources. The three of them were no exception. This is too unbelievable. This is the first time I've ever heard of a demon that has reached the Foundation establishment stage and formed its core, Zhao Zunjin exclaimed in surprise. Holding the demon core, Mu Yungui pondered. Simply eating people isn't enough. There's a strange aura within it, which is why a demon core condensed. Besides the surging vitality, there was also a powerful aura, which might be related to my purpose in coming here. Where did you encounter this monster? Mu Yungui asked Zhao Zunjin. At this moment, Zhao Zunjin, the sword cultivator in flowing white robes, finally came to his senses. He quickly composed himself, returning to his previous calm demeanor, though a hint of barely concealed excitement still lingered in his eyes. Brother Mu, we encountered this demon in a misty, cloud-shrouded area of the mountains, but now that I think about it, the demons there seem to be stronger than ordinary demons. Their strength is mostly above the Foundation establishment stage, and there are even some Golden Core stage demons. After we saw this strange thing, we prepared to leave that place, but unfortunately we were still detected by this soul-eating spider. Zhao Zunjin pointed in the direction where they had encountered the spirit-devouring spider, and Mu Yungui looked in that direction, understanding dawning on him. Just as he had thought, it was at the 7 inches of the mountain range. Meteor Dragon, mountain range? Mu Yungui wondered to himself. Brother Mu, could you sell me this demon core? I'm trying to break through to the Golden Core stage and desperately need this demon core. Fearing that Mu Yungui and the other person would leave, Zhao Zunjin hurriedly said, The spirit stones are negotiable. I hope Brother Mu can be so reluctant as to part with them. I truly owe Brother Mu a favor. After saying that, Zhao Zunjin bowed to the two men, showing his sincerity to the two cultivators who were only a little over 10 years old. If nothing unexpected happens, the other party will definitely sell it to me, not only gaining a favor from a Golden Core cultivator, but also receiving a considerable reward. Having experienced a failed breakthrough last time, Zhao Zunjin's desire to break through to the Golden Core stage had become an obsession. No, I refuse. It seems you've already tried to break through to the Golden Core stage once, but failed, right? The failure last time completely depleted your foundation, so even if you had this, you still wouldn't be able to break through. From the moment Mu Yungui first saw Zhao Zunjin's half-black and half-white hair, he knew that the person in front of him had some deficiencies in his foundation. So he waved his hand and refused without hesitation, saying, I might need it myself soon, so I won't sell it. I don't lack spirit stones. Zhao Zunjin hadn't expected the other party to refuse, especially since they could tell he had failed to break through his cultivation level. However, wanting to seize this last glimmer of hope, he hurriedly pressed on, asking, "Brother Mew, if it weren't for breaking through to a higher realm, using this demon core to provide spiritual energy would be a terrible waste." Zhao Zunjin had already given the man enough face, but he hadn't expected him to be so stubborn. He was pondering how to persuade him when Shang Yuanling angrily spoke up. "We've already given you plenty of face by buying this demon core with spirit stones. Do you still want to push your luck? You still say Brother Zunjin can't break through. What do you, a chi-refining cultivator, know? Moreover, we were the ones who exhausted the soul-devouring spider's strength, and it fell too. Well, probably to the chi-refining stage before you guys managed to snatch it up. Come to think of it, the demon core should belong to us." Having said that, Shang Yuanling, who had recovered most of her strength, intentionally or unintentionally, displayed her foundation establishment stage cultivation. Seeing Shang Yuanling's threat, Mu Yongui said, "If you keep doing this, we'll never be able to make a deal." After being rebuked by Mu Yongui, Shang Yuanling silently spoke to Zhang Wu, who was watching the scene unfold. The sword tip pierced the ground. Zhang Wu, who had been leaning against the gun and watching the show, saw Shang Yuanling's expression and helplessly drew his gun, slowly walking over with a look of helplessness and embarrassment on his face. Recalling the sect leader who entrusted the girl to him when the sect was destroyed 5 years ago, Zhang Wu had a headache. Shang Yuanling used to be so cute and innocent, but after learning about her promise to the sect leader, she became fearless and increasingly reckless. However, Zhang Wu himself felt somewhat guilty towards Shang Yuanling, because he seemed to have developed other feelings for the girl entrusted to him by the sect leader. Zhang Wu took a few steps forward, somewhat helplessly slung the gun over his shoulders, and spoke to Shang Yuanling in his mind's eye. "Linger, once you get the demon core, promise to use it yourself and I'll help you. Your cultivation level should also be raised. How can you succeed by relying on me and Zhao Zunjin all the time? Mind your own business. Didn't my father entrust me to you back then? Aren't you going to help me? And you still say you love me," Shang Yuanling said angrily. Zhang Wu shook his head. "I said I would always love you even at the cost of my life, but that doesn't include Zhao Zunjin." Shang Yuanling was surprised that Zhang Wu would refuse her. She anxiously said, "Do you still not trust Brother Zunjin? The demon core is right in front of you. Are you going to let these two chi-refining stage brats take it away? I want to help Brother Zunjin get the demon core. If you don't help me, I'll threat to kill myself." Zhang Wu sighed, but still walked towards where Mu Yongui and Jiang Ruochen were. "Brother Mu, although Sister Linger went a bit too far, giving us the demon core is indeed the right thing to do. How about this? In addition to buying this demon core, we will also give you the materials from the Foundation establishment stage demons we hunted, which can be sold for some spirit stones. What do you think?" "Oh, what, you're going to resort to force if you can't win an argument?" Mu Yongui suddenly raised his head, his eyes sharp as knives, staring straight at the person opposite him. The corners of his mouth turned up slightly, revealing a disdainful smile, and he asked in a cold laugh. Seeing this, Zhang Wu was surprised that the person before him, despite not being of high cultivation level, was so forceful. His expression changed slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "Young Brother Mu, this demon core is of little use to you. Selling it to us in exchange for spirit stones would be the wisest choice. I hope you will consider this carefully. It seems I'll find it hard to refuse favors, spirit stones, and materials from golden core cultivators. However, I won't," Mu Yongui said casually, toying with the demon core in his hand. Zhang Wu looked at the girl beside Mu Yongui, her ruby-like eyes swirling with an unknown spell gathering within them. Zhang Wu sensed that the aura was extremely dangerous. The atmosphere was somewhat somber. At this moment, Zhao Zunjin slowly spoke. All right, Sister Linger, since Brother Mu is unwilling to sell, then let's just forget about it. Brother Zunjin, this demon core was already ours to begin with. Are you just going to give it up so easily?" Shang Yuanling asked unwillingly. "I'm sorry, I really don't want to fight with my savior. It's also my fault for being so weak. I wish I had killed that monster myself." Zhao Zunjin sighed, a hint of regret on his face. Hearing these words, Mu Yongui felt that they were a kind of witty banter. Seeing Zhao Zunjin's insistence, Shang Yuanling also prepared to tell Zhang Wu to put down his weapon. Just then, Zhao Zunjin said again, "Without this demon core, I really don't have the chance to break through to the golden core stage. My wish to establish a sect with you may not be fulfilled. I apologize to Linger first." After hearing this, Shang Yuanling's initial thought of letting the two go vanished instantly. Chapter 21, is what you're so proud of actually useful. Halt, hand over your demon core, otherwise you won't be leaving today. Shang Yunling's face was gloomy as she spoke in a low voice. Seeing this, Mu Yungui did not stop, but simply pulled the girl to look at Shang Yunling, whose emotions had suddenly changed drastically, unaware of the story behind those words. Too bad I'm not interested in your stories. After saying that, they pushed aside the spear that was blocking their way and walked away on their own. Zhang Wu only symbolically stopped them and let them go. Zhang Wu stopped them. A surge of intense resentment welled up within Shang Yunling. She loathed this feeling of being looked down upon. What angered her most was that Zhang Wu, who had always obeyed her every word, was no longer following her orders. So Shang Yunling shouted at the two of them. An arrogant and conceited trash martial artist, a chi cultivator with a rotten face. What right do you have to refuse us? If you don't stop, I'll take it myself. As she uttered those words, a hint of disappointment flashed in Jiang Ruochen's eyes, but she quickly recovered. Mu Yungui, who had already walked dozens of steps, paused, let go of the girl's hand, and stopped in his tracks. Seeing that the other party seemed frightened and stopped, Shang Yunling seemed to regain a little dignity and smiled. As expected, they only respond to force. Regarding the scar on the girl's face, both Zhang Wu and Zhao Zunjin felt a pang of unease when they first saw Jiang Ruochen, but out of respect for the petite girl who had saved them, they both ignored it. However, at this moment, no matter how much Zhang Wu usually doted on Shang Yunling, he couldn't help but furrow his brows slightly. After all, those words were indeed a bit too much for the other party. He subconsciously opened his mouth, just about to remind Shang Yunling to watch her words when dragons have their scales, and so does Mu Yungui. In fact, Mu Yungui had made similar sarcastic remarks countless times in his previous life. However, as a prodigy in cultivation, he never took those rumors to heart. However, if anyone dares to say even a single bad word about his apprentice, they are absolutely offending him. Moreover, Ruochen was only 10 years old at the time, and Mu Yungui did not think that such hurtful words could be laughed off by a girl of 10 years old. Ling, Zhang Wu looked at Mu Yungui, whose face was gloomy, and wanted to remind Shang Yunling. However, before she could finish speaking, a black shadow flashed by, and Mu Yungui, dressed in black, appeared in front of Shang Yunling at a speed that was difficult for ordinary people to detect. Before anyone could react, Mu Yungui's figure had already descended upon Shang Yunling like a ghost. His movements were swift as lightning. His 5 fingers instantly transformed into sharp claws, tightly gripping Shang Yunling's neck and slowly lifting her up. "You clown! Do you really think everyone will put up with your terrible personality?" Mu Yungui's voice was icy cold, filled with undisguised disdain and contempt. As her feet left the ground, Shang Yunling's heart was filled with terror and anger. Her eyes widened, her face filled with astonishment, because she hadn't even been able to see Mu Yungui's movement trajectory. Moreover, the spiritual energy around her seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force, becoming as stagnant as still water, unable to flow at all. Her breathing became increasingly difficult, each breath feeling like a brush with death. Faced with this sudden turn of events, Shang Yunling's face turned deathly pale, and cold sweat poured down her forehead. She tried to struggle, but found that she had completely lost control of her body and could not break free from Mu Yungui's iron-like grip. "Let her go, or I'll kill you." In the blink of an eye, Zhang Wu had no time to react. Seeing Shang Yunling struggling helplessly, he was terrified and could only quickly point the tip of his spear at Mu Yungui, ready to launch an attack at any moment. Seeing Zhang Wu's threat, Mu Yungui not only did not let go, but tightened his grip even more, squinting at the immobilized female cultivator in front of him and saying, "Foundation establishment stage is really too terrifying. Tusk, tusk, tusk. It's a pity that I can crush her to death whenever I want now." Zhang Wu gritted his teeth and said, "Mu Yungui, you killed Linger, you will definitely die. Put her down, we don't need the demon core." "Master, no," Jiang Ruochen said, her head lowered. "Brother Mu, don't be impulsive," Zhao Zunjin chimed in from the side. Although Shang Yunling's cultivation level wasn't considered strong, she was still a foundation establishment cultivator. Yet, she was being choked and unable to move at all. The implication is self-evident. Zhang Wu was startled. Mu Yungui was absolutely confident that he could kill Shang Yunling. Zhang Wu wasn't even sure if he could kill Mu Yungui. Besides, if he waited until Shang Yunling was dead to take action, it would all be meaningless. Fortunately, Mu Yungui did not seem to have any intention of killing. With a flick of his arm, he tossed Shang Yunling aside as if she were a useless object. Cough, cough. Shang Yunling fell heavily to the ground, panting heavily, her face filled with undisguised murderous intent. Seeing this, Zhang Wu quickly squatted down to check on Shang Yuanling's condition. What's the point of using your supposedly lofty level of attainment as a talking point? A cultivator like you, without these two, wouldn't even know how you died. Zhao Zunjun, although saving you wasn't her intention, she did indeed spare your lives. However, this woman is too arrogant and domineering, so I'll teach her a lesson first. As Mu Yungui's calm words rang out, Zhang Wu couldn't help but feel intimidated by the young man's presence. Having said that, he turned and walked to Jiang Ruochen, who seemed somewhat troubled. He stopped looking at Shang Yuanling, patted Jiang Ruochen's head, and said softly with a slightly apologetic expression, "She said your master is arrogant and conceited. Shall we show her?" Jiang Ruochen hesitated, then shook her head, gave a smile, and pulled Mu Yungui, wanting to leave as soon as possible. "Zhang Wu, kill him. I want to tear them both to pieces." Shang Yuanling staggered to her feet, looking at the two men who had already walked away. The shame and hatred in her heart erupted like a volcano, instantly taking over her entire mind. Her face became ferocious and distorted, making even her beautiful features look ugly. "Linger, don't you understand? They look to be only about 16 years old, yet they've already embarked on cultivation, and they can suppress your cultivation level instantly. Don't you understand? He just attacked me when I was off guard. I don't care, I must kill him." Her once beautiful and gentle face was now twisted and ferocious with extreme hatred. Shang Yuanling stared intently at the departing figure, her eyes flashing with resentment. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck Shang Yuanling. After thinking for a moment, she gritted her teeth and decided to go all out. She swiftly extended her right hand and gently waved it, causing the spatial ring on her hand to instantly emit a dazzling light. Immediately afterward, a faint, almost imperceptible silver-white light shot out from the ring, tearing through the void like lightning and flying straight towards the two people who had already walked away. The silver light was incredibly fast, shooting towards the two people in the distance. Zhang Wu had no time to react and could only watch helplessly as it flew away, a strong sense of unease and fear welling up inside him. Chapter 22. Fool, Idiot, Liar. Even if a less than pleasant deal falls apart, there's no need for the two sides to resort to violence. Even if things escalate to the point of near breakdown, there still seems to be room for reconciliation. However, Shang Yuanling launched a sneak attack on the two people in the distance, and from then on, there was no possibility of turning the tide, because this was done with the intention of killing someone. Poison and hidden weapons, though seemingly dishonorable, often play a crucial role in life or death battles. Especially when the two are used together, their lethality increases exponentially, making them a veritable killing weapon. Bone-corroding poison needle, a spiritual treasure the size of a young girl's black hair, tempered with bone-corroding spiritual poison. When Zhang Wu obtained this spiritual treasure, he had just entered the foundation establishment stage. He met Zhao Zunjun while accompanied by the then well-behaved and sensible Shang Yuanling. After several conversations, the three became partners. They kill demons and they kill people. A novice cultivator in the qi refining stage nearly killed all three of them. The opponent was treacherous and ruthless, using hidden weapons and sneak attacks at will, but after several twists and turns, they still managed to kill him. After killing that evil cultivator, Zhang Wu and Zhao Zunjun decided to give Shang Yuanling the evil cultivator's bone-corroding poison needles for self-defense, mainly to catch her off guard. However, Shang Yuanling brought out this magical treasure in this way. To be honest, although the three of them were rogue cultivators, apart from accepting bounties to kill, they had never committed murder specifically to seize treasures. However, things had already come to this. This is what it means to be a rogue cultivator. The yellow-rank spiritual treasure, the bone-corroding poison needle, was unleashed. Even the strongest qi-refining cultivator couldn't withstand it, especially under the circumstances of a sneak attack. Despite thinking this way, for some reason Zhang Wu didn't feel guilty. Instead, he felt a strange unease. Even Zhao Zunjun, who was standing nearby, noticed something was wrong. By the time she realized what was happening, the poison needle was already about to hit the black-clad youth in the distance. At the critical moment, Mu Yungui suddenly turned around and said to the three people in the distance without any apparent reason, "Speaking of which, do you know about the characteristics of the soul-eating spider?" As this ambiguous statement was uttered, the bone-corroding poison needle suddenly shattered less than 10 centimeters away from the two people, and the fragments scattered like starlight. Jiang Ruochen was somewhat angry, not understanding why things had escalated to this point. but her gaze towards the three of them held a hint of looking at a corpse. As expected, Mu Yungui was hiding his strength. Zhang Wu gritted his teeth, ignoring Shang Yuanling, who was still confused about the situation, and shouted to Zhao Zunjun to the side. "Then we have no choice but to kill them, Zhao Zunjun." Upon sensing the sword intent emanating from Mu Yungui's body, Zhao Zunjun's eyes flashed with madness. He looked completely infatuated, and his reliable and upright gentlemanly demeanor vanished entirely. Zhao Zunjun's hand, gripping the sword, trembled slightly as he called out to Mu Yungui. "Brother Mu, this sword intent is so powerful, if I could comprehend it, I would die without regret." "Zhao Zunjun, have you gone mad?" Zhang Wu shouted in a deep voice. With a shout, Zhao Zunjun snapped out of his daze and suppressed his emotions, saying, Right. All right. Since they want to kill Linger now, we have no choice but to take action." After a pause, Zhao Zunjun continued, "It would be best to avoid killing if possible. Strike first, why spare their lives now?" Having said that, Zhang Wu unleashed his spear intent and leaped forward, rushing towards the two figures in the distance at incredible speed. There was no turning back. They had already resorted to life-threatening tactics. Zhang Wu didn't believe the other party could forgive and forget and reconcile. Moreover, Mu Yungui was hiding something. He was actually a sword cultivator. Although he had no sword in his hand, he could easily conceal his aura, which was definitely not ordinary. The soul-devouring spider is one of the few monogamous demonic creatures. Once it reaches adulthood, it will stay with its partner for life. Mu Yungui held the girl's hand and remained standing in place without launching an attack, simply talking to himself. The sound wasn't loud, but all three people on the other side could hear it. Seeing Zhang Wu approaching with a gun, Jiang Ruochen unleashed a golden vine that whipped towards him. Bang! Zhang Wu blocked the attack with his spear and was forced back several steps before stopping. The soul-eating spiders won't cause any of those. Well, like a love triangle with three entangled creatures tilde. There won't be any more of those devoted simps. Oh no, simp spiders. There aren't any spiders that keep the other person hanging on without giving a response when they express their love. Mu Yungui continued to talk about the knowledge of the soul-devouring spider, while Jiang Ruochen blocked all of Zhang Wu's attacks. Just then, Shang Yuanling finally understood the deeper meaning in the other party's words. She unleashed a powerful, colorful attack, slamming it towards the two people. At the same time, Zhang Wu and Zhao Zunjun also made their moves. Shang Yuanling showed no fear whatsoever, instead confidently declaring, "No matter how much you say, it won't stop you from losing your life. You blind fool, die." The attack came instantly. Shang Yuanling unleashed a powerful attack, hoping to severely injure her opponent, but the flowing light was shattered by the sword energy before it reached Mu Yungui. Immediately afterwards, a streak of dark sword light flashed by, but it also vanished completely before the two of them. Seeing this, Zhao Zunjun's expression turned serious. Under the cover of Shang Yuanling and Zhao Zunjun, Zhang Wu arrived in front of Mu Yungui. Suddenly, a dazzling white light flashed, and the sharp spearhead gleamed with a chilling light under the bright moonlight, piercing straight towards Mu Yungui. Mu Yungui nimbly retreated a few steps, his movements incredibly fast, narrowly avoiding the fatal blow with an extremely tricky head-tilting posture. When his attack missed, Zhang Wu swiftly and gracefully turned around, the end of his spear striking Mu Yungui's hand that was tightly gripping the demon core. With a muffled thud, the attack hit its target precisely, and the demon core was ejected, escaping Mu Yungui's control. Zhang Wu reacted swiftly and snatched it away without hesitation. However, instead of continuing his attack, he chose to retreat. Faced with his own attacks, Mu Yungui only dodged and defended without making any counterattacks. Even when its demon core was stolen, it remained indifferent. This unusual reaction made Zhang Wu feel a little suspicious. He gripped the demon core tightly in his hand, examined it carefully, and after confirming that it was genuine, he was even more surprised. The demon core was indeed genuine. Thinking of this, Zhang Wu's brows furrowed involuntarily. Could it be that the other side has no intention of engaging in battle at all? Zhang Wu felt a pang of guilt, but the look of contempt in Mu Yungui and Jiang Ruochen's eyes, as if they were looking at the dead, immediately dispelled the thought. The sense of vigilance grew stronger. After Zhang Wu stopped, recalling what Mu Yungui had just said, he said in a deep voice, "Who are you implying?" Mu Yungui shook his hand, showing he wasn't injured, and continued slowly. "I didn't mean anything by saying this, so don't take it personally, just as I said. Spirit-devouring spiders usually live together as a male and a female." As soon as he finished speaking, A cold, biting night wind suddenly began to blow, rustling the leaves. Under the moonlight, Zhang Wu watched as the auras of the two people in front of him suddenly plummeted, becoming indistinguishable from ordinary people, before their figures vanished. They escaped. What kind of magic is that? However, before he could think about it, a shaking sound came from the distant woods, accompanied by a strong demonic aura that spread out without any concealment. The three of them only then came to their senses. They had been so focused on the two of them that they hadn't noticed that the soul-devouring spider had a mate, but it seemed too late for them to realize it now. A blurry figure rushed towards Zhang Wu like lightning, its sharp forelimbs slicing easily across Zhang Wu's chest, deep enough to expose the bone. Blood gushed out, staining the ground red. One person was severely injured in just one encounter. Fool, idiot, liar. I'm too lazy to even lift a finger. Mu Yungui's voice rang out, offering this assessment. Chapter 23, Spirit Insect Gu. Master, why did it turn out like this? Jiang Ruochen looked at the battlefield, still full of confusion. Realm is paramount, and deceit and treachery are commonplace. From the moment you embark on the path of cultivation, you should not harbor the hope that everyone is inherently virtuous. If Ruochen ever encounters a cultivator who could threaten her life, regardless of their background or cultivation level, she should not hesitate. But this time, it's mainly because I don't want to get my hands dirty. Mu Yungui yawned, a hint of boredom in his eyes, as if he were looking at three clowns. Mu Yungui and the young girl did not seek revenge on the three rogue cultivators, but instead withdrew from the battlefield. However, they did not leave, but remained at a safe distance, watching the three from afar as if they were three lambs to the slaughter. Upon noticing that the male soul-devouring spider had followed the trail of battle to this location, Mu Yungui decided to bring Jiang Ruochen along to witness the soul-devouring spider avenge his wife. This soul-devouring spider was slightly smaller, and its cultivation level was not as high as the previous one, but its attacks were extremely fierce. The battle begins the moment we step onto the battlefield. On the battlefield, blood was gushing uncontrollably from Zhang Wu's chest, so he could only endure the excruciating pain and clutch his chest in an attempt to slow the bleeding. The male devouring spider stared at Zhang Wu, hissing, and its eyes filled with murderous intent. Then it leaped up and bit at Zhang Wu. Suddenly, a dazzling sword light and a brilliant glow shone from behind Zhang Wu. Zhao Zunjin and Shang Yuanling unleashed their powerful spells with all their might, slamming them fiercely towards the massive body of the soul-devouring spider. However, the soul-eating spider's attack was exceptionally fierce. It was practically fighting for its life. A piercing swishing sound rang out, followed by the chilling sound of flesh being sliced apart. In an instant, Zhang Wu's body was mercilessly pierced by those scythe-shaped sharp limbs, and the originally vigorous vitality in his body was quickly drained away like water in a bamboo basket. In the final moments of his life, Zhang Wu used the last bit of strength in his body to throw out the precious demon core he was holding tightly, which landed accurately in Shang Yuanling's hands. A faint smile appeared on Zhang Wu's face, as if he wanted to say something, but blood splattered and he was killed on the spot. It all happened so fast that Shang Yuanling didn't even have time to react. Her eyes widened, her face filled with shock as she watched everything unfold before her. The person who had always been by her side, the one she found so incredibly annoying, had lost his life so easily. At this moment, Shang Yuanling's mind was in complete chaos. Unfortunately, there was no time for mourning. The devouring spider quickly shifted its target to Shang Yuanling, who held the demon core in her hand. Linger, the soul-devouring spider's target should be this demon core. Zhao Zunjin immediately realized the monster's purpose and warned it. My spiritual power has mostly recovered by now. Give me the demon core and I'll cover you. Still reeling from Zhang Wu's death and never imagining things would turn out this way, Shang Yuanling stood frozen in place, uttering in a daze. Zhang Wu, how could he do this? Don't stand there, give me the demon core, or we'll all die here. Zhao Zunjin shouted angrily at Shang Yuanling. Shang Yuanling trembled in fright. Zhao Zunjin had never yelled at Shang Yuanling like that before. At this moment, Shang Yuanling seemed to wake from a dream and handed over the demon core in her hand, which was still stained with Zhang Wu's warm blood. She looked down at her palm, and a strong smell of blood wafted up to her nose. Having been rescued by Mu Yungui and the other person before, Shang Yuanling had never felt the weight of life, but at this moment, it was given a true meaning. When Zhao Zunjin took the blood-stained demon core, a satisfied smile spread across his face. He could clearly feel the powerful energy contained within the demon core and couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. "Brother Zunjin, what are you laughing at?" Shang Yuanling suddenly felt that the man she once relied on so much had become somewhat unfamiliar. The demon core was stained with Zhang Wu's blood, making it impossible for her to smile. At this moment, Zhao Zunjin had fallen into a state of frenzy. He laughed hysterically and shouted, "Linger! With this demon core, I will definitely be able to break through to the golden core stage. I definitely can." But before long, the soul-devouring spider changed its target to Zhao Zunjin. "Let's run away quickly," Shang Yuanling interrupted Zhao Zunjin's promise. Her eyes were fixed on the approaching spirit-devouring spider, and the fear and desire to survive in her heart gradually overshadowed her sadness. Seeing the soul-devouring spider about to pounce, Shang Yuanling turned and ran without hesitation. However, the soul-devouring spider seemed to have already seen through their intentions. It quickly opened its mouth and spewed out a thick web from its belly, sweeping towards the two of them. Just then, Shang Yuanling suddenly turned around, and a dazzling beam of light shot out from her hand, rushing towards the spider web like lightning. The light collided with the spider web, producing a loud bang, and the powerful force instantly shattered the spider web into countless fragments, which scattered in all directions. If Zhang Wu were still alive, he would never believe that Shang Yuanling used this technique. At least, she wouldn't do something that would consume spiritual energy so recklessly. However, this is indeed the case. Shang Yuanling's body started moving on its own, literally. Aside from her facial expressions, she found that she seemed to have no control over anything, as if her whole body had lost all sensation, and she could only faintly feel that her spiritual energy was being severely depleted. "Brother Zunjin, my body. What's wrong with my body?" Shang Yuanling looked at Zhao Zunjin in horror and spoke with a trembling voice. "Of course I've got her under control, Linger. It's a pity that Zhang Wu died after seizing the demon core. Without his fighting power, it will be difficult for me to take you away safely. I'm sorry, Linger, please cover my retreat." Zhao Zunjin calmly revealed the truth. After speaking, she manipulated the white powder floating in her hand, lightly touched the ground with her toes, and seemed to jump or fly away. Shang Yuanling was left facing the soul-devouring spider with a look of terror and despair. Just as the spirit-devouring spider was about to stop Zhao Zunjin, an even more dazzling burst of light appeared, like an indestructible city wall, blocking the path of this enormous monster. Shang Yuanling activated her magic again, and her face turned pale. Seeing this, the soul-devouring spider had no choice but to deal with the person in front of it first. "Master, what did Zhao Zunjin do to Shang Yuanling? Why was she willing to die?" Jiang Ruochen asked, suppressing her discomfort as she watched the bloody scene. In the distance, Shang Yuanling, like a moth drawn to a flame, recklessly unleashed her magic. After nearly exhausting her spiritual energy, she resolutely chose to self-destruct, an action that left the soul-devouring spider somewhat disheveled. "Do you remember the white powder that Zhao Zunjin used to heal his wounds? That was actually a kind of larva called spirit insect. It was extremely small, like dust, so it was difficult for people to detect. Once this spirit-manipulating worm enters the host's body and lies dormant, it will attach itself to the meridians like a maggot when circulating spiritual energy. Then the controller can easily control the other's body through the mother worm. However, there is a prerequisite. The other's cultivation level must be lower than one's own, otherwise the controller will suffer a backlash," Mu Yungui explained. "The most important thing is that this spirit insect is extremely rare, but I just happen to know about it. So he only dared to reveal his true colors after Zhang Wu's death. No wonder he didn't dare to use this kind of goo technique before." Jiang Ruochen suddenly realized, but then, as if she had suddenly remembered something important, she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. "Ah, then, master, your hand." "Oh, you mean this?" Mu Yungui smiled slightly, then slowly extended a finger. He lightly raised his fingertip, and a sharp sword aura swept across his finger. Where blood should have flowed, there was no trace of blood. Instead, a strange white powder appeared. Without close inspection, it would be difficult to notice that the powder was actually made up of countless tiny white insects. These insects had 4 thin legs and were now quietly resting on Mu Yungui's fingertips, not daring to make the slightest movement. "Master, please don't keep such a dangerous thing. Ruochen will get rid of it for you," Jiang Ruochen said with a serious expression. She gently raised her hand, and a pure and powerful force of light surged from her hand. The light shone directly on the white powder, and in an instant, the once calm powder, as if struck in a vital spot, began to wither rapidly. It lost its original vitality, as if its soul had been ripped out, becoming lifeless. However, Mu Yungui quickly took back what he was holding and said to Jiang Ruochen, "Don't worry, I left this on purpose, you'll see in a bit. If the fish caught on the hook is too big, it will drag you into the water." Heavy. Chapter 24, Once a Sword Immortal. Facing a demon of the same level, it wouldn't be too difficult for Zhao Zun to escape. In the blink of an eye, he had already darted more than 100 meters away. The soul-devouring spider, somewhat annoyed, flung the dead female cultivator from its mouth aside and followed the direction of the demon core. Just when she thought she could escape danger, Zhao Zunjin, who had been keeping her distance, suddenly stopped. After taking a few stiff steps, she ran back towards the devouring spider. The soul-devouring spider, which had sensed that it was about to lose track of the opponent's location, suddenly felt hopeful again upon noticing the opponent's presence and accelerated its pursuit. Before long, the human and the demon met by a river. The cold moonlight shone down, seemingly lowering the surrounding temperature. Zhao Zunjin held a long sword, its blade gleaming with a chilling light. He took a deep breath, then suddenly swung his longsword. A crescent-shaped sword aura shot out from the tip of the sword, carrying a fierce momentum, and slashed fiercely at the soul-devouring spider with dazzling speed. Sensing the powerful sword energy, the soul-devouring spider reacted swiftly with its massive body, nimbly dodging the attack. However, Zhao Zunjin gave it no chance to catch its breath, followed by a series of attacks, the sword shadows as dense as meteors, constantly striking the soul-devouring spider. The soul-devouring spider was not to be outdone. It opened its ferocious mouthparts and spat out streams of black silk, which wove into a huge net in an attempt to block Zhao Zunjin's attacks. The two sides exchanged blows and engaged in a fierce battle. Zhao Zunjin dodged and weaved, as if he could foresee the movements of the soul-devouring spider, and subtly gained the upper hand. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they exchanged blows over 100 times. The soul-devouring spider was covered in wounds. Seeing this, Zhao Zunjin once again drew a wisp of sword light from his sword, which then suddenly transformed into a white line, piercing through the soul-devouring spider. Of the two men, one woman, and one demon, only Zhao Zunjin remained alive. Seemingly having exhausted too much energy, Zhao Zunjin knelt on the ground, panting heavily and trembling. Then, with a face full of pain, Zhao Zunjin gritted his teeth, placed his trembling hand on his forehead, and used his sword energy to cut open his forehead. Regardless of the blood streaming down his face, he simply reached into his forehead and stirred it around, searching for something. He then grabbed something soft and quickly pulled it out. The pained expression lessened slightly, but his face was still covered in blood, making him look extremely terrifying. Zhao Zunjin held a white insect, about the size of a cicada, stained red in her hand, and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Waste!" Zhao Zunjin roared at the little white worm. The little white worm's face was full of helplessness as it waved its tiny arms and whimpered, looking extremely aggrieved. To put it bluntly, it's like Zhao Zunjin and Mu Yungui are in a tug-of-war, and he's just acting as the rope, but in the end, he's the one who gets blamed. After explaining, Zhao Zunjin became even angrier and threw the little insect heavily to the ground. The little white worm simply gave up and pretended to be dead, remaining completely still. Seeing this, Zhao Zunjin became even angrier and was about to make a move, but as two figures arrived, his face was filled with despair. "Brother Mu, please spare me." Zhao Zunjin had lost all will to live and knelt on the ground, not intending to run away. Escape, the opponent could even use the offspring of the spirit insect Gu to control him, who possessed the mother insect. The oppressive divine sense that pressed down on him like the blazing sun was beyond the reach of ordinary cultivators. Furthermore, the sword intent the opponent had previously displayed, and the sword technique he had just used under his control were not something a low-level sword cultivator could possess. If before it could be said that Mu Yungui had obtained some kind of fortuitous opportunity that made him so fearless, then the fact that he could now easily control his body to kill the spirit-devouring spider is much more meaningful. Now Zhao Zunjin can only pray that Mu Yungui will let her go. "Oh, brother Zhao, we even exchanged medicine, why do you say that?" Mu Yungui smiled, pretending not to know what the other person was saying. "Brother Mu, I only used Gu on you to protect myself. I had no intention of harming you. Shang Yuanling, who provoked you, has already been killed by me, as has Zhang Wu. Those who had murderous intent towards you are all dead, so I have no reason to oppose you." Zhao Zunjin lay prostrate on the ground, his hair disheveled and covered in blood. He was a far cry from his former dashing appearance. He recounted what he had done truthfully. You didn't mean to provoke Shangyuan Ling with words, did you? To maintain your image as a high-minded, reclusive cultivator, you go so far as to provoke that idiot Shangyuan Ling into targeting me. You are truly despicable. Mu Yungui looked at the demon core that Zhao Zunjin was still clutching tightly in his hand, without the slightest pity, and mocked. Seeing that Mu Yungui didn't seem very interested in the demon core, Zhao Zunjin ignored the other's sarcasm and quickly added, "All I need is this demon core, and I can break through to the golden core stage. Then I'll be at Brother Mu's beck and call. What do you say? A golden core stage sword cultivator. Even Brother Mu couldn't refuse, right? I can tell that Brother Mu's cultivation level was once very high, but for some reason, he has now fallen to the chi refining stage, right? Also, that place you asked about, it must hold some kind of opportunity, right? Once I break through to the golden core stage, I'll take you there soon. Otherwise, Brother Mu won't be able to find it." Jiang Ruochen, who was standing next to Zhao Zunjin, paused for a moment after hearing what Zhao Zunjin said, and then wrote down the information. Although his master knew about his own background, he knew very little about his master's identity. Some of his knowledge even came from strange fragments of memory, and he had no idea what those things were. However, Jiang